Chapter 73. It's so lively. Looks like I'm late. Yin Xiaoyi ran out of Qing Bay campus. Ruyue didn't inform him and Vol. Vol followed Modi, and Yin Xiaoyi just got out of school. Other than the dragon and the two newly discovered leaders of the Sacred Flame sect, the rest of the Zodiac guardian gods rushed over in time. Qiyu patted Little Yi's shoulder and said in a low voice, "Little Yi, you and Vol can go back first. You don't have to worry about the things here." Vol said, "Boss, how can we do that? We're also part of the Zodiac guardian gods. Protecting Ming Ming is also our responsibility." Yin Xiaoyi chuckled and said, "That's right. Recently, under the guidance of the Master, my strength is only at 2 clouds. The Master said that I'm talented and smart, much better than a certain fat rat." Vol stared at him and said, "Damn, will you die if you don't brag? You're better than me? Why don't we compete in drawing some other day?" Su Dong laughed and said, "Compete in what? Who's the worst at drawing? All right, we're all brothers, so don't quarrel. Listen to Qi Yu and go back first. We don't need to bring many people with us later, and it's not like we're really going to fight. Even if we're going to fight, it'll be boss alone. We're just going to prevent them from ganging up on us." Vol said dejectedly, "Sigh, it's all because I'm too stupid. I haven't broken through to 2 clouds yet, so I can't help you." Little E hugged Vol's broad shoulders and said, "All right, aren't I the same? Do you think we're all as abnormal as boss? We've jumped up in an instant. Let's go. If we have time to waste here, we might as well spend it on training at home. Let's go back to our homes. Boss, remember to let us know if there's any good news." As he spoke, he half forced himself to hug Vol's shoulders and walked away. Before leaving, Vol looked at Modi reluctantly and whispered something. Everyone present was an outstanding expert. Although Vol's voice was very low, they could still hear Vol telling Modi to be careful. Qi Yu sighed in his heart. From the outside, the gap between Vol and Modi was too big. No wonder Modi found it hard to accept him. He had been busy with his own matters these days. After dealing with Ming Ming's problem, it was time to worry about the Vol. He had to find out how Modi felt about the Vol. If there was no chance at all, he might as well persuade the Vol to give up. One side was sinking deeper and deeper, unable to extricate oneself in the future. Just as Qi Yu was deep in thought, Tianhun had already returned and looked helplessly at Qi Yu. Qi Yu looked back at him and revealed a faint smile, one filled with determination. There was determination in the smile. "Qi Yu, let's go together. The old man said that you should all go. However, the old man wants you to identify yourselves as Ming Ming's friends." Qi Yu smiled. "I am Ming Ming's boyfriend, so there's no such thing as a position. Where will I meet with Lin Yifan? The old man won't go in person, will he?" Tianhun shook his head. "Of course the old man won't go. But Jida will accompany those people. Will all of you go?" Qi Yu smiled. Before he could speak, Guan Ping, who got off the Audi car, said, "Of course all of us will go. We want to see who actually wants to marry our Ming Ming to the west." Tianhun smiled bitterly. "You really know how to make trouble for me. Then come with us. Our car will lead the way. Which one of you wants to ride with us?" Qi Yu replied, "No need. 2 cars are enough for the few of us. Brother Tianhun, it's hard for you this time. Wait a moment. I want to talk to my friends, and then we'll go." He let go of Ming Ming's hand, turned around, and walked to Shun Yun and Su Qing. Shun Yun looked at Qi Yu, and then looked at the other Zodiac guardians with him. "Is there anything else?" Qi Yu said, "Sister Yun, I need your help." Shun Yun said, "Tell me. You spared my father last time. No matter what you want me to do, I'll promise you." Qi Yu faintly smiled. "It shouldn't be anything difficult for you. I'm pressed for time, so I won't talk to you for now. Since you've agreed, I'll give you a call after I'm done." Shun Yun nodded and said, "Okay, I'll wait for your call." "Qi Yu." She called out to Qi Yu, but when she looked at Ming Ming beside him, she held back from saying what she wanted to say. She lowered her head and said, "You can go." Qi Yu didn't ask. He had vaguely guessed what Shun Yun wanted to say to him. At this time, he knew that he couldn't ask. He glanced at Shun Yun and Su Qing, then turned around and signaled to Tianhun that they could go. Tianhun sighed and turned towards the off-road vehicle. The Knife Soul and Earth Soul's gazes froze on Qi Yu for a moment before following Tianhun. Modi and Su Dong got into Guan Ping's car, while Chiyu pulled Ming Ming into the BMW. The three cars left Qingbei University in a single file. It wasn't until the three cars turned a corner and disappeared from sight that Su Qing let out a long sigh. Her whole body seemed to relax. Xinyan asked with concern, "Qing, what's wrong?" Su Qing said, "Sister Yin, who were those people just now? Why is Chiyu with them? It seems that some of them are Chiyu's subordinates." Xinyan's eyes revealed a trace of bitterness. He said, "There are some things that you're better off not knowing. I can only tell you that Chiyu isn't like what you've seen him before." Su Qing nodded and said, "I feel it too. When I see him again, he's obviously different from before. He wasn't as bad as he used to be. Previously, he seemed to release everything outwards, but this time, he seemed to retract everything inwardly. I didn't know why, but I had a strange feeling when I saw him. He really didn't blame me, but after I saw him, I felt even more guilty." Shen Yun held Su Qing's hand. "All right, Qing, don't think too much about it. Let's go as well." Tianhun did not say where they would meet. Therefore, Chiyu and Guanping could only drive behind the off-road vehicle. The speed of the Earth Spirit was very fast. Fortunately, Chiyu and Guanping's skills were good, so they could follow behind. Gradually, Chiyu could guess the destination of this trip. Last night, he had walked the same path. Yes, he was really a little confused. Wasn't the Hilton Hotel a very good place to meet? Ming Ming was accompanied by Jida to meet Lin Yifan. The appearance of the few of them was just a variable. The situation now was very delicate. In a sense, they could be said to be opposed to the three from Greece, and the yellow flame soul in the mainland, including Jida, had the task of coordinating. Chiyu handed the phone to Ming Ming and asked her to tell Hai Ruyue the destination of this trip. As expected, Chiyu's guess was very correct. Tianuan's car drove directly to the Hilton Hotel before stopping. Sua had already seen Chiyu yesterday, but Chiyu was not afraid of being recognized by her. So what if she knew? Anyway, he had no intention of settling things peacefully with these Greeks. Tianhun got out of the off-road vehicle and quickly walked to Chiyu, who also got out of the car. He lowered his voice and said, "Brother, I know that Ming Ming is very important to you, but I have to remind you again. Don't be impulsive later. We represent the country, not you personally. Do you understand?" Chiyu smiled faintly and said, "Big brother Tianhun, don't worry. Even if we have a falling out, we won't be here." Tianuan's gaze fell on Chiyu's hand that was holding Ming Ming's. Chiyu naturally understood what he meant, but he had no intention of letting go. He pretended not to understand and said, "Let's go, big brother Tianhun. We should go in too." Tianhun smiled bitterly and said, "Brother, I'm begging you. If you go in like this, it will be very difficult for me." Ming Ming also looked at Chiyu and said, "Forget it. Other people are making things difficult for big brother Tianhun, and I won't fly away." Chiyu glanced at Ming Ming, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He still held Ming Ming's hand domineeringly and said, "I want to hold your hand and make that kid from Greece give up. Big brother Tianhun, it's not that I don't want to give you face, but I have my own principles." As he spoke, he held Ming Ming's hand and walked into the restaurant. Chiyu had only taken a few steps when two figures were already in front of him. They were the Earth Soul and the Blade Soul. Chiyu had long disliked these two people. He shouted in a low voice, "Get out of the way." He held Ming Ming with his left hand and stretched out his right hand. An invisible energy, like a wall, covered the two people in front of him. Both the Blade Soul and the Earth Soul were strong fighters among the Yanhuang souls. Seeing that Chiyu was pushing his palm towards them, the two naturally did not want to be outdone. The Earth Soul took a step forward and stretched out his right hand to block Chiyu's right palm. Chiyu snorted disdainfully. From his right index finger, a ball of green light appeared. The light flashed, and with a low whistle in the air, it directly attacked the Earth Soul's hand. The Earth Soul's ability was to control all Earth attribute energy molecules. His own defense was extremely amazing. He did not think that Chiyu's seemingly simple attack could cause any harm to him. The momentum of his right palm did not change, and a ball of yellow light had already appeared in his palm. Of course, the Blade Soul was not idle. 4 silver lights shot out from his body at the same time. Even Chi Yu did not see clearly what the 4 lights were. However, the middle finger of his right hand immediately reacted. A ball of faint blue light floated out. The light scattered in the air, forming an invisible layer of water barrier, and directly shrouded the Earth Soul. The first to come into contact with Chi Yu's attack was the Earth Soul. When the green light touched his palm, he could not help but let out a muffled groan and took a few steps back. His left hand clenched his right hand tightly, and a painful expression appeared on his face. In fact, the Earth Soul itself was not so fragile, but in front of the Hilton Hotel, he could not exert his strength at all. Otherwise, if he made a few earth spikes, he was afraid that ordinary people would immediately be frightened. What Chi shot at him was a wind blade. Wind naturally had a restraining effect on Earth. With the cutting force of the wind, Chi directly broke the defense on his palm. The extremely strong wind energy rushed into his body and raged in the meridians in his palm. The Earth Soul was fully urging its ability to compete with this wind energy. The situation of the Blade Soul was worse than that of the Earth Soul. Chi Yu's water thundercloud force was 1 cloud stronger than the wind thundercloud force. Although the energy did not seem very strong, the barrier formed was very tough. The 4 silver lights were 4 ordinary thumbtacks. Under the reverse sweep of the water curtain, they were immediately swallowed, and, at the same time, the water curtain also shrouded the body of the Blade Soul. Then, a barely visible faint purple light spread out from under Chi Yu's feet and approached the body of the Blade Soul in an instant. Non-pure water was conductive. Although Chi Yu's water thundercloud force was pure from an energy point of view, its essence was contaminated with the characteristics of several other kinds of thundercloud force. As soon as the thundercloud force appeared, it was naturally and easily transmitted to every part of the Blade Soul's body. The Blade Soul did not even make a sound. Its whole body had become completely stiff, and its hair was standing on end. Even its eyes had become dull. The posture of Chi Yu's outstretched right hand did not change. He still pushed it out. The retreating Earth Soul had already dodged to the side, and the Blade Soul was also pushed to the side by his palm. He strode into the lobby of the Hilton Hotel with Ming Ming. Chi Yu had only exchanged blows with the 2 souls for a short moment. The heavenly soul, who had originally wanted to step forward to help, forcibly suppressed the surging energy in his body. With 6 sharp gazes focused on him, it was likely that no one would dare to act blindly without thinking. Furthermore, the strength that Chi Yu had displayed was sufficiently shocking. Tianhan had no choice but to spread his hands and put on a harmless look. Guan Ping, Modi, and Su Dong stepped forward. The 3 of them followed behind Chi Yu and Ming Ming into the Hilton Hotel with the 3 souls. Chi Yu stood in the middle of the lobby. His Kirin aura quickly spread to every corner of the first floor. Soon, he found the target he was looking for. His eyes flashed, and he looked at the cafe on the left of the lobby. Chi saw a pair of purple eyes. Even though this was the second time he had seen them, he could not help but be attracted by the perfect face. His eyes glazed for a moment before returning to normal. The perfect purple-haired woman, who might have inherited the goddess Athena's divinity, and So-So, who had long dark red hair, were both sitting in the cafe. Opposite them was a man in a suit. As his back was facing Chi Yu, he could not see his face clearly. Noticing Chi Yu's gaze, the purple-haired woman was also stunned for a moment. There was a trace of surprise in her beautiful eyes. So-So, who was next to her, immediately noticed Chi Yu and also looked over. However, her gaze was not as gentle as the purple-haired woman's. It was still full of charm, and there was a hint of provocation in it. The 2 women's attire was the same as when Chi Yu saw them last night. However, the purple-haired beauty's long hair was now draped over her shoulders, adding a touch of tenderness. 3 souls, Guan Ping, and the other Zodiac guardian gods also walked in at this time. They were not ordinary people, and immediately noticed the gazes of Chi Yu and the purple-haired beauty. Su Dong's eyes immediately widened. Although he had seen many beautiful women, like Chi Yu, it was the first time he had seen a girl as perfect as the purple-haired beauty. For a moment, he could not help but feel his mouth go dry. Guan Ping was a little better than him, but he was also stunned for a moment before returning to normal. Ming Ming said in a low voice, "Chiyu, is that them?" Chiyu nodded gently and said, "Yes, the man sitting with his back facing us should be Lin Yifan." At this time, Lin Yifan also noticed that there was something wrong with the gazes of the two beauties in front of him, so he turned his head and looked outside. Seeing his appearance, Chiyu could not help but frown. Lin Yifan and Chiyu were completely different types. Lin Yifan's skin looked very fair, and he wore a pair of black-framed, thin-edged glasses. He seemed to be a little older than Chiyu. His fitted suit, handsome face, and faint scholarly aura easily gave people a good impression. Lin Yifan did not notice Chiyu. He saw Ming Ming at a glance. Although a few years had passed, he still recognized her at once. He quickly stood up from his seat, whispered something to the purple-haired woman and so-so, and walked out of the cafe. There was only a partition between the hotel's cafe and the lobby. When Chiyu saw them coming, he also took Ming Ming's hand and greeted them. At this time, Jita's tall figure appeared. When he saw Lin Yifan and Chiyu gradually approaching, he quickly took a few steps forward and stood in the middle of the two of them. "Let me introduce you." Jita was very nervous at this time. He did not expect Chiyu to arrive with Ming Ming while he was in the washroom. Especially when he saw Chiyu holding Ming Ming's hand, his eyes could not help but freeze. He smiled bitterly in his heart. "Master, oh master, you can come if you want, but you don't have to be so overbearing. Ming Ming, you've met before. This is Mr. Lin from Greece. Mr. Lin, do you still recognize my sister? Oh, this is my master, Chiyu. He came with my sister. Also, this is written as our friend." Lin Yifan looked at Chiyu and nodded at him in a friendly manner. Chiyu kept looking at him. He realized that although Lin Yifan was smiling at him, when he saw him holding Ming Ming's hand from the corner of his eyes, his pupils still contracted slightly. Lin Yifan smiled and said, "Ming Ming, long time no see. There's an old saying in Yinhuang, a girl changes 18 times before reaching womanhood. You've become even more beautiful than before, like a bright pearl, dazzling and moving." Ming Ming smiled lightly and said politely, "Thank you." Lin Yifan saw that Ming Ming was ignoring him, and then looked at Chiyu's expressionless face. He could more or less guess what was going on. He smiled slightly and said, "Let's go sit in the cafe." After that, he first made a gesture and then walked to the cafe. Chiyu frowned slightly. This Lin Yifan, at least on the surface, did not look annoying. Although he had a noble temperament, he did not have the domineering and arrogant attitude of a powerful person. It was easy to give people a good impression. When everyone walked into the cafe, Guan Ping, Modi, and Su Dong all sat down at the table next to them. Su Dong's eyes never left the purple-haired woman, and he silently muttered something. The three souls sat on the other side. The earth soul's complexion was better, but the knife soul's body still looked a little stiff. Obviously, he had not recovered from Chiyu's attack just now. Chiyu had a good sense of propriety, but in less than an hour, he was afraid that he would only be able to maintain his current state. Suo looked at Chiyu and said with a charming smile, "This gentleman looks so familiar. Didn't we meet yesterday?" Chiyu pretended to be surprised and said, "Met? Did we? How come I don't remember?" Suo glanced at Chiyu's right hand and said to Lin Yifan, "Yifan, it seems that your visit to see your fiancée this time was not so smooth. Look, she doesn't seem to remember you anymore." Suo. The purple-haired woman called her plainly. The charming smile on Suo's face faded a little, but her eyes were still on Chiyu, as if she wanted to see through everything in his heart. Chiyu knew that she had suspicions because of his figure. When the two of them were fighting yesterday, it was easy for the other party to recognize the aura they emitted. Lin Yifan said to Ming Ming, "Miss Ming Ming, we haven't seen each other for a few years. How are you? I arrived at the capital of the Yinhuang Republic yesterday morning and just went to visit Uncle. Uncle said that you are now studying at university." Ming Ming nodded and said, "Yes. Aren't you going to introduce me to these two sisters?" Lin Yifan slapped her forehead and said with a smile, "Look at me. I was so happy to see you that I forgot my manners. This is Miss Yamu, and this is Miss Suo Saw. They are both researchers in the history of our country. This time, they came with me to the Yanhuang Republic because they are very interested in your country's ancient civilization. I wonder what is the relationship between Mr. Qi and Ming Ming. Yamu? Qi Yu's eyes fell on the purple-haired woman's perfect face. This name sounded a little sad. He looked at Yamu and calmly replied to Lin Yifan's question. I am Ming Ming's boyfriend. Lin Yifan's expression changed slightly, but it quickly returned to normal. Yamu's eyes, which were originally lowered, also looked up at Qi Yu. Her big eyes, which seemed to be able to speak, revealed a gentle light. Qi Yu seemed to see his own body's reflection in her clear eyes. Qi Yu, Ming Ming, and the 3 Greek guests opposite them. The 5 of them quieted down. Even the 2 tables next to them were silent. The atmosphere suddenly became a little heavier. The Tian Hun at the other table frowned deeply. Although he knew that Qi Yu did not intend to be kind today, he did not expect him to be so direct and not leave any face for the other party. The smile on Lin Yifan's face disappeared. She looked at Qi Yu and said, I wonder if Mr. Qi knows that Miss Ji and I've been engaged for a long time. Qi Yu chuckled and said, so what? After all, Ming Ming has not married you yet. Lin Yifan said calmly, it is Yifan's honor that Mr. Qi admires my fiancée so much. Qi Yu was stunned. He thought to himself, this Westerner's way of thinking is indeed very different from the East. If I were Lin Yifan, I would probably have already slammed the table and stood up. At this moment, Yamu opened her mouth. Based on my understanding of the Yanhuang Republic, your country has always been a country that upholds promises. There is rarely a precedent of changing a promise that has already been made. Qi Yu smiled slightly and said, that's right. You are right. We, the descendants of Yanhuang, value promises very much. However, from Ming Ming's point of view, when the engagement was first made, it was mostly her family's idea. At that time, Ming Ming was still young and was still a minor. Her mind was not mature. Moreover, she did not personally promise anything. Taking a step back, even if Ming Ming promised something, from my point of view, it is only between Ming Ming and Lin Yifan. It has nothing to do with me. I have also promised Ming Ming that I will love her for the rest of my life. It is also a promise, and it seems to be equivalent. Yamu was stunned for a moment and said, Mr. Qi, are you twisting words and forcing logic? Qi Yu shrugged and said, whatever you think. I am not a cultured person, so you don't have to use logic to pressure me. Haven't you heard of this saying in our Yanhuang country? When a scholar meets a soldier, he cannot be reasoned with. No matter what you think, in my understanding, Mr. Lin and I should stand on the same level. If that is the case, and not considering other factors, it seems that we should let Ming Ming choose her partner herself. Unexpectedly, Lin Yifan actually nodded and said, Mr. Qi's words make sense. Regardless of whether it is in the west or the east of your country, we all pay attention to the freedom of marriage. I have always been against political marriages and marriages based on benefits. In the past, there were people who chose to fight for a wife. To me, it was laughable. If the woman does not like it, what is the point of the duel? Qi Yu looked at Lin Yifan with a little surprise and said, so you agree to let Ming Ming choose? Although Lin Yifan's words were very beautiful, Qi Yu felt a little uneasy in his heart. Lin Yifan smiled and said, of course I agree. Mr. Qi and I both like Miss Ji very much. If that is the case, of course we will follow Miss Ji's choice. But, at this point, he suddenly changed the topic and looked at Ming Ming earnestly. He said, Miss Ji, I feel that it is a little unfair for me to let you choose now. After all, we have not seen each other for a long time. You have spent much more time with Mr. Qi than I have. This means that you can only see Mr. Qi's good points and are not familiar with me. I think, before you make your choice, can you give me a chance? Ming Ming was a little curious and asked, what chance? Lin Yifan said sincerely, I want to invite Miss Ming Ming to Greece for some time. We can also get to know each other. Greece's beautiful Aegean Sea, the birthplace of the Olympic Games, are all tourist attractions in the West. I think I will definitely let Miss Ming Ming have a good time. And if Miss Ming Ming wants to make a decision, please do it after this trip. What do you think? I think this is more fair for me and Mr. Chi. After Lin Yifan finished speaking, even Guan Ping, who also had a PhD, could not help but secretly admire him. This kind of retreat, in order to advance, not only would it not make Ming Ming feel disgusted, but it also showed that he was magnanimous. But fundamentally speaking, if Ming Ming was willing to travel to Greece with him, there would naturally be a lot of variables. But now, if Chiyu immediately objected, he would immediately be overwhelmed by the other party in terms of momentum. Chiyu did not say anything, but just turned his head to look at Ming Ming. Ming Ming was also looking at him. She shook her head almost without hesitation and said, "Mr. Lin, thank you for your kindness, but I don't think it's necessary. I can't leave Chiyu." Chiyu was secretly happy in his heart. The foreshadowing he had laid before had played a very important role at this moment. Yes, Lin Yifan did use his intelligence to gain the upper hand in words, but he did not know that Ming Ming's cognition could not leave a certain range. With Ming Ming's feelings for him, she naturally would not joke around with her life. Lin Yifan sighed softly and said with a bitter smile, "It seems that my chance is really slim. I didn't expect Mr. Chi to be so attractive. But I believe Miss G also knows that our engagement was set by my father and your father. Although I don't agree with political marriages, my father is the president of Greece. If I rashly cancel our engagement, I'm afraid he will find it hard to accept. If Miss Ming Ming is willing to give me this chance, even if you insist on canceling the engagement in the future, I can explain to my father that I'm just not charming enough. I believe my father will understand at that time." Ming Ming's eyes flickered as she said, "You mean that if I'm willing to go to Greece with you for a period of time, you'll agree to cancel the engagement?" Lin Yifan smiled and said, "I'm not a clingy person. If Miss Ming Ming really refuses to accept me at that time, I will cancel the engagement. Miss Ming Ming, please give me this chance. How about it?" Chiyu's heart trembled, but he still did not say anything. He was confident in Ming Ming. Nodding her head, Ming Ming replied, "All right, I can go with you to Greece. But I have two requests. As long as it's within my means, I will definitely try my best to fulfill your request." Lin Yifan made a gesture. "Of course you can do it. Firstly, I hope to set a specific time for this trip. I can't stay in Greece forever. I still have to complete my studies." Ming Ming smiled. "That's simple. According to your country's school system, you should be on your winter break soon. Let's set this trip as your winter break. I believe that it won't be too long, and it won't affect your studies." Nodding her head, Ming Ming replied, "That's a reasonable arrangement. Furthermore, I have another request. I hope that Chiyu can accompany me on this trip." "What?" "Little girl, don't go too far. We Greeks aren't that easy to bully." Suwa snorted in annoyance. Although she still maintained a seductive look on her face, her eyes had already turned cold. Chapter 74. For some reason, So, who was very arrogant even in front of Chiyu, turned pale the moment she sensed the aura emanating from Ming Ming. Her shoulders trembled and her lips trembled, as if she couldn't speak. Lin Yifan looked at Ming Ming in surprise and said, "Miss Ming Ming, please don't make things difficult for me, okay? If you want to bring Mr. Chi with you to Greece, then this opportunity is as good as none for me." Chi finally opened his mouth, a playful smile on his face as he said, "A straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. I think you should be able to tell that Ming Ming and I are not ordinary people. Because we practice a special Eastern technique, our auras are connected. Once we are separated by a certain distance, it will cause great damage. Therefore, it is impossible for Ming Ming and I to separate. Mr. Lin, I think there are many beauties in Greece, so why are you wasting your time here?" No matter how smart Lin Yifan was, he didn't expect that this would be the result of his words. His expression was already very ugly. When he first met Ming Ming, he was shocked. At the same time, due to political reasons, he readily agreed to the marriage. After a few years, when he met Ming Ming again, he was immediately attracted by Ming Ming's temperament. Although Ming Ming wasn't as perfect as Yamu, her beauty was even better than Soso's. However, her beauty was even greater than Sua's. She was definitely a typical top-notch Oriental beauty. In his heart, Yamu was sacred and inviolable, and so was something he didn't even dare to think about. If he could have an outstanding wife like Ming Ming, he would be very satisfied. Therefore, from the moment they met, he had been thinking of all kinds of ways to increase Ming Ming's impression of him so that he could smoothly carry out the marriage. However, Ming Ming's heart was obviously not on him. She seemed to have a deep relationship with Chi Yu, who was not outstanding at all. He didn't stand a chance at all. He was unwilling to be outdone by Chi Yu. All right, I'll agree to Miss G's request on behalf of Yifan. I'll invite Mr. Chi and Miss G to come to Greece together, Yamu suddenly said in the awkward atmosphere. Chi Yu and Lin Yifan were both surprised. Mississippi Lin Yifan called out anxiously. Yamu raised her hand to stop him from continuing. He smiled faintly and said, "However, Mr. Chi, Miss G, Yifan has already taken a step back many times. Can you please take a step back as well?" Chi looked at Yamu. He didn't know why, but when he saw her clear purple eyes, his heart was unconsciously attracted to them. Ming Ming said, "In what way do you want us to take a step back?" Yamu smiled. Her smile was very gentle and didn't show her teeth. It wasn't a noble aura, but it gave off a very warm feeling. "Let's go to Greece together. I hope that Miss Ming Ming and Mr. Chi won't travel together. Yifan will accompany Miss Ming Ming on the trip, and I'll accompany Mr. Chi." Mississippi this time, Lin Yifan and Sophos exclaimed at the same time. They didn't expect Yamu to make such a decision. No, Ming Ming didn't even think about it, and immediately rejected. Every girl would inevitably develop a mentality of comparison and hostility when they saw a beauty who was more outstanding than them. Ming Ming was no exception. Other than Hai Ruyue, this was the first time she felt that there was a woman who surpassed her in all aspects. The Yamu in front of her was superior to her in both looks and temperament. What if something happened if she and Chi were together? "Miss G, please listen to me." Yamu's emotions didn't change at all because of Ming Ming's rejection. She also stopped Lin Yifan and Sophos with her hand. "First of all, I promise the two of you to go to Greece with us. Naturally, we can solve the problem that Mr. Chi mentioned. At the same time, I guarantee on my honor that your safety in Greece won't be a problem. Also, I promise that you can see each other once a day. This is already the biggest concession we can make. After the trip, if everything is as it is now, I can represent Yifan to cancel the engagement between the two of you. I can also guarantee that he won't harass you in the future." After listening to Rain Eyes' words, he clearly felt that something was wrong, even though the conditions were already very generous. Although the conditions were already very generous, she still shook her head. "All right, we agree." A cold voice suddenly sounded, attracting everyone's attention to the entrance of the cafe. Hai Riyue, who was wearing a long white dress, appeared quietly. The fur shawl on her shoulders accentuated her noble temperament. Every move she made emitted a powerful aura that enveloped the whole place. In terms of strength, Hai Riyue was still the strongest among the Zodiac guardian gods. That day when she fought with Chi Yu, she was afraid that she would hurt Chi Yu's life, so she held back a little. The moment she appeared, the aura on Chi Yu's side instantly rose. Hai Riyue didn't seem to be walking fast, but as soon as she finished speaking, she had already entered the cafe. While everyone was sizing her up, she arrived beside Chi Yu and Ming Ming. "Sister Riyue," Ming Ming called out. Hai Riyue gently hugged Ming Ming's shoulder and looked at Yamu. "We agree to Miss Yamu's suggestion." Chi Yu gave Riyue a questioning look. Hai Riyue smiled and said, "I think that with Miss Yamu as a companion, Chi Yu will be able to better appreciate the Greek culture. Haven't you always been interested in Greek mythology? This is a good opportunity." Hearing Hai Riyue's words, Chi Yu immediately understood what she meant. The person in front of them was a Greek guardian. If he and Hai Riyue's guess about Miss Yamu's identity was correct, and since she promised to protect him and Ming Ming, wouldn't it be a good opportunity to investigate the situation of the Greek guardian? At the same time, understanding more about the situation in the West would naturally be of great benefit to any possible conflicts in the future. Yamu, who had been maintaining a smile, had a slight change in expression. Her purple eyes revealed a rare trace of surprise. "Mr. Chi, are you very interested in our Greek mythology?" May I know what aspect of Greek mythology you are more familiar with? Chiyu smiled. Actually, I don't know much about it. However, I am very interested in your country's goddess of war and wisdom, Athena. Lin Yifan and Sophos' expressions changed at the same time. Although they immediately tried to hide it, Chiyu still noticed it. Yamu's delicate eyebrows moved slightly. I see. Actually, in Greek mythology, there are 12 main gods. Athena is only one of them. Ryus said, then it settled. After Ming Ming's semester break ends, Chiyu will accompany her to Greece. I'll have to trouble Mr. Lin and Miss Yamu when we get there. None of the Yin Huang Soul members, including Jida, had expected things to be resolved in this way. Although it was not what they wanted to see, at least there was no conflict. They could not help but secretly sigh in relief, and their tense nerves also relaxed. Chiyu pulled Ming Ming to her feet and extended his right hand to Yamu. He smiled. Miss Yamu, I think we will meet soon. To others, he seemed to be referring to the trip to Greece in half a month, but was that really what Chiyu meant? Yamu extended her hand to shake Chiyu's. Her hand was as warm as jade, soft and bouncy. In the warmth, there seemed to be a gentle energy fluctuation. Chiyu could clearly feel that it was a very pure energy. The energy fluctuation was not strong, and it naturally dissipated after touching his hand. Mr. Chi, I also look forward to meeting you again. Yamu still had a faint smile on her face. She only shook Chiyu's hand lightly, and then retracted her hand. After watching Chiyu and the others leave, Yamu returned to her seat. She picked up the coffee cup in front of her and brought it to her lips, taking a small sip. Lin Yifan's gaze only retracted when Ming Ming's figure could no longer be seen. She returned to her seat and lowered her head, thinking about something. Yifan, do you not understand why I agreed to Miss G's request? Yamu put down the coffee cup and smiled at Lin Yifan. Lin Yifan said respectfully, there must be a special meaning behind Miss G's arrangement. Yamu smiled and said, you have a good eye. That Miss G is indeed a very outstanding girl. However, there are some things that you might not know, and I don't want you to know too much. Suwa curled her lips and said, that fellow called Chi, you must be the same person who eavesdropped on our conversation last night. I can recognize his aura. Although he tried his best to conceal his aura last night, he still used energy attacks when he fought with me. However, he didn't seem to be hiding it today. This fellow is very arrogant. Yesterday, he flew away like a coward. Lin Yifan was stunned for a moment and said, Sister Suwa, you said he can fly? Suwa snorted and said, you silly boy, that Chiyu is not very good looking. If he didn't have some ability, how could he have attracted your fiancée? Yamu smiled and said, Suwa, your words are a little biased. Although Mr. Chi looks ordinary, the aura he exudes is indeed something I have never seen in my life. Among the people I met today, he is the only one that I can't completely see through. This is also the reason why I agreed to go to Greece with him. You should have seen that Chiyu and the girl who came later discovered my identity. With such keen insight, coupled with their own strength, their identity is also on the verge of being revealed. Suwa said disdainfully, aren't they just people from the 4 great clans of Yin and Huang? What's so great about them? I'll find a chance to let that Chi know how powerful I am. Yamu frowned and looked at Suwa. Although her gaze was calm, Suwa's heart couldn't help but tremble when they made eye contact. She lowered her head. Yamu sighed softly and said, you've been with me for a few years. I remember telling you many times not to underestimate any opponent. That will only put you in a disadvantageous position. Chiyu's strength is not as simple as what you saw last night. At the same time, they don't belong to the 4 great clans. The 4 great clans of Yin and Huang are surnamed Zhou, Su, Luo, and Shun. There is no Qi surname. If they are members of the 4 great clans, it is impossible for them to hide their surnames. This should be their pride. From the ability that Chiyu used in your battle yesterday, if my guess is correct, they should belong to the East's strongest protector. Lin Yifan was surprised and asked, the strongest protector? What is that? Yamu said, in the West, the signs of the Zodiac are the ancient standard for distinguishing the year, month, day, and hour. But in the East, it is different. The East has its own culture, and the Yanwang Republic is an ancient country with 5,000 years of civilization. Together with ancient Greece, Babylon, and Egypt, they are known as the four great ancient civilizations. And the one that preserved the most ancient civilization is the Yanwang Republic. In ancient times, they used the heavenly stems and earthly branches to distinguish the year, month, day, and hour. The signs of the zodiac are far more complicated than our signs of the zodiac. Among them, the earthly branches symbolize the 12 zodiac signs of the East. Just like are the signs of the zodiac, they have their own protectors. They are rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, sheep, monkey, chicken, dog, and pig. And since the development of human civilization, special ability users with the 12 zodiac signs have appeared in the East. They are the backbone of the East's protection. In the East, they are known as the zodiac guardians. Every one of them symbolizes a zodiac sign and has the special ability of their own zodiac sign. Maybe when they're just born, they cannot be compared to the constellation guardians of the 12 zodiac temples. But their growth speed is extremely shocking. Once the zodiac guardians develop to a certain extent, they will be strong enough to compete with us and the Vatican. With the help of other people with special abilities in the East, they will become an unshakable force. Every one of them symbolizes a zodiac sign. What does that Chi Yu symbolize? When I fought with him yesterday, he did not seem to show any animal-related ability. I only feel that his energy is very domineering, but I did not feel any sign. So said with some disagreement. She felt that when she fought with Chi Yu yesterday, she had the upper hand. If not for Chi Yu's ability to fly, she might have already won. Yamu smiled indifferently and said, compared to you Zodiac Guardians, the biggest advantage of the Zodiac Guardians is that not all of them attack on the ground. A few of them have the ability to fly. However, not every Zodiac could fly. Among the Zodiac that can fly, the first Zodiac sign is the dragon. She's also the one that can fly the most. Then there is the chicken. According to the information I have seen, the Eastern Zodiac Guardian Chicken Warriors can use their wings to fly when they reach 7 clouds. Lin Yifan said, then is Chi Yu a chicken or a dragon? Yamu's eyes lit up and said, he is neither a chicken nor a dragon. At first, I also thought he was a dragon. But when that woman appeared at the end, I knew that my judgment was wrong. Because the woman who appeared at the end was a dragon. The dragon aura on her body had a small part of our Western characteristics. That was why I could recognize her at a glance. If my guess is correct, Chi Yu should be the king of the Zodiac. He has the ability to command all the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. The king of the Zodiac? What's that? Kirin. In the legends of the Yanwang Republic, in ancient times, Kirin was the king of the divine beasts. But because Kirin's breeding ability was extremely poor, after a certain period of time, in order to pass on his bloodline, Kirin initiated to pass on his and the 12 Zodiac's bloodlines through the human body. Thus, the system of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors was formed. Do you know why you think that Kirin is not strong enough? This is because the Qilin itself is not in charge of fighting. According to our records, the Qilin possesses extremely comprehensive support abilities. As long as he is around, the strength of all the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors can increase by several levels. If Chi Yu is Kirin, then he will be a big threat to us. Because in our records, Kirin is very weak. Apart from his excellent recovery ability, it can be said that he does not have the ability to attack. But yesterday, he was able to escape from your pursuit. That is enough to prove that he is not an ordinary Kirin. Compared to the 12 Zodiac, Kirin is much more mysterious and dangerous. Unless it is absolutely necessary, we should not easily become enemies with the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. Otherwise, it will bring a lot of unnecessary trouble. Lin Yifan said, Miss, I understand what you mean. As long as you say it, even if you want me to give up on the engagement, Yifan will not complain. After all, I know what is important. Yama smiled and said, no, how can I let you give up? Not only do I not want you to give up on the engagement, but I also want you to fight for it as much as possible. Even if we do not want to become enemies with the Zodiac Guardian Warriors, at the same time, I do not want them to develop too quickly. Otherwise, the threat to us will be too great. Perhaps you have not noticed it. Your fiancée, Miss G, is also one of the Zodiac guardian warriors. Suasa nodded and said, "That's right. I also felt it. Her aura does not seem to be stronger than mine. But for some reason, when she released her aura towards me, I felt a very uncomfortable feeling. I felt fear from the bottom of my heart. This is really too strange." Yama smiled and said, "Actually, there is nothing strange about this. Miss G's Zodiac should be the chicken. The chicken is the nemesis of some small poisonous insects, including centipedes and scorpions. Although you're a Scorpio, you will also be restrained by it. This is a natural Zodiac restraint. You don't have to worry too much about it." At this moment, Yama's expression suddenly changed. A faint golden light flashed on her right hand. The light flashed and disappeared. She clenched her right hand into a fist and frowned. "What a good Kirin." Suatha asked with concern. "Miss, what's wrong?" Yama shook her head and said, "I actually did not notice that he left a trace of energy in my hand when we shook hands. Fortunately, his energy is not very strong. I just don't know why he left this energy behind." While Yama was shocked, Chiyu, who was driving the BMW, also lit up. However, the light appeared between his eyebrows and disappeared in a flash. It's a pity that they did not say the purpose of this trip to Yanhuang. When he shook hands with Yama, Chiyu secretly left a hidden energy in her palm. Because energy was not used for attack, and Chiyu could conceal it, it was extremely difficult to notice. The purpose of this energy was very simple. It was to eavesdrop. If Chiyu had the strength of a 5 cloud or above, this residual energy could even last for 3 days. The eavesdropping ability was something he had just learned with Ryue and Shio today. It could only be used on living beings. Ming Ming and Ryue were sitting in the back seat of the BMW. Ming Ming did not want to go home, so she asked Jita to go back and explain to the old man. Yama was talking on the other side. Ryue also told Ming Ming in detail about what she and Chiyu found about Yama, so that Ming Ming understood why she agreed to accompany Chiyu in Greece with Yama. Suddenly hearing Chiyu say something inexplicable, Ryue could not help but ask, "What's wrong? Chiyu, did you think of something?" Chiyu smiled slightly and said, "Just now, I left an eavesdropping energy in Yama's hand, and I heard her conversation with Saw and Lin Yifan. A pity that my energy was not strong enough, and she had already discovered it and expelled it." Our guest was right. Yamu is this generation's godly successor, and that Saw is the guardian of the Scorpio constellation. However, they have also guessed our identity. However, they did not say their purpose for coming to Yanhuang this time. It seems like I still have to carry out the original plan. Ryue, among the various powers that have come to Yanhuang, which one do you think will be the easiest to find? Don't even think about Yamo. This beautiful woman hides her strength deeply, and no one knows how strong she is. It's not time to shed all pretense of cordiality. Ryue thought about it and said, "I'm afraid it's not easy to find the people from the Vatican. From the beginning to the end, I have only seen Lu Yuan. Chiyu, what method do you want to use?" "Chiyu, there's no harm in telling you. As a member of the Shun family, Xinyan also has her own special ability. In the past, she told me that her ability is the Mind Storm. Under certain circumstances, she can control a person's mind. Therefore, I want to capture an outsider and let her release the technique. We will get what we want to know. I don't think it will be easy for the Vatican to succeed. To be able to represent the Vatican, their faith must be very devout, and their will must be very firm. Even if I use my own strength to assist Xinyan, it will be very difficult for me to succeed. Other than the Greek guardians and the Vatican, there is only the Dark Council. From the looks of the holy knights from the Vatican and Yamu, who inherited the god of Athena, I think that the leper girl and the others were only sent by the Dark Council to make arrangements. They should still be sending people over. These fellows who belong to the dark side should be much weaker than the people from the Vatican in terms of willpower. As long as we can catch one of them, our problem will be solved. It's a pity that I don't know where the leper girl has run off to. Otherwise, I would have a way to get information out of her without even using the Mind Storm." Saying that, He couldn't help but think of the last time the leopard girl left, the sadness in her eyes. Leopard girl, oh leopard girl, you should be able to feel that the poison in your body has been removed by now. I have never lied to you. Ryue thought for a moment, then said, I'm afraid it won't be easy to find the people from the Dark Council. Oh, right. We can use the Sacred Flame Sex Intelligence Network. Last time, they were betrayed, and they had already formed a grudge. Hu Guang and Ian had just joined us. I think they would be very happy to help us find the people from the Dark Council. As long as we find traces of them, we will immediately take action. When we are searching, we will spread out our net at the same time, looking for the leopard girl who is alone, and looking for other people from the Dark Council at the same time. I have a feeling that this time, the Sun Nation won't just sit back and watch. It's very likely that they'll send people here as well. Although they don't have many powerful fighters, the Soul Devourer Hall has quite a few. They've always been good at sneaking around. Chiyu, there's no time to lose. Since Yamu and the others said that Ming Ming will be able to travel to Greece in 10 days, then the operation will definitely be in the next few days. We must obtain accurate information as soon as possible. When I was eavesdropping on a conversation just now, I heard Yamu say that as Kirin, my ability is mainly supportive. I think I've heard you guys mention it before. What's going on? From the time I've been cultivating myself, it seems that I haven't found anything that's supportive. Even if there is, it's just to help myself. Ryue nodded her head and said, I've asked Master about this before. At that time, Master told me that as Kirin, your greatest help to the Zodiac Guardian God would only be reflected after all the Zodiac Guardian God warriors appeared. What you can do now is to rely on your Kirin's aura to assist us in our cultivation. The Ascending Cloud technique is based on the Qilin's Ascending Qilin technique. It can be said that any of our cultivation methods have evolved from the Qilin's cultivation methods. Therefore, the aura you emit during cultivation will be of great help to us. Chiyu laughed bitterly. Master is right. Once our Zodiac Guardian God appears, trouble will come one after another. How can we have a time to gather everyone together to cultivate? What's more, everyone has their own things to do, so it's almost impossible to gather them together. After Master meets with Hu Guang tomorrow, I hope that they can join us to destroy the Western guy's mission. The two of them are strong enough, and together with us, our overall strength should be above any of the Western guys. Ryue smiled and said, You don't have to worry about this. Master's personal charm is unparalleled. I believe that no matter how lascivious those two guys are, after meeting Master, they will understand the importance of being the Zodiac Guardian God. The most important thing for us now is to find out the specific purpose of those Westerners. Ming Ming said, Chiyu, no matter what their purpose is this time, I want to participate. Chiyu smiled and said, You can't be missed. You're already a 4-cloud, and since you have my blood in your body, the Thundercloud force seems to be a little different from before. Also, only when you are by my side, I will feel more secure. Ryue's gaze swept past Chiyu and then looked at Ming Ming. Although she did not say anything, Chiyu still caught a trace of sadness in her eyes. He sighed in his heart. This was indeed not a good time to explain. Everything could wait until the trouble in front of them was settled. When they returned to the Dragonfield courtyard, it was time for dinner. Before eating, Chiyu first contacted Hu Guang. Sure enough, as Ryue had predicted, when Hu Guang heard that they were looking for trouble with the Covenant of Darkness, he immediately agreed to help. At the same time, he said that he was willing to provide a lot of firepower to help. The blood of the Sacred Flame sect could not be shed in vain. At the same time, Ryue also told everyone, including Zagru, about the good news of finding the snake and monkey of the Zodiac Guardian God. Zagru smiled and said, Chiyu is indeed an auspicious sign. In less than a year, there are already as many as 9 Zodiac Guardian God warriors. From now on, everyone will work together to protect our homeland. Buddha is merciful, although we do not want to invade anyone. As the descendants of Yin and Huang, we will not allow anyone to harm our country and people. Chiyu laughed and said, Grandmaster, what you said is a bit too big. Why does it sound so strange to me? Zagru said, Do you think that I am overestimating you by using the country and people as an excuse? In fact, you're wrong. As your strength gradually increases, and as you solve the troubles in the future, you will understand that I am not overestimating you. As the leader of the Guardians of the East, everything the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors do is for the sake of our descendants of Yin and Huang. Everyone who is eating quieted down, including Qi Yu, Ryue, Ming Ming, Su Dong, Guan Ping, and Modi. They all had the strength of 4 clouds and above. Feeling the auspicious aura from Zagru, they all felt that their shoulders were heavy. As the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors, they should bear this responsibility. Zagru smiled and looked at the vegetarian dishes specially prepared for him by the chef. He said, "All right, everyone, hurry up and eat. Now that you're facing more and more troubles, time is running out. If you want to improve your strength faster, you must seize every moment to cultivate." Everyone agreed at the same time. Although Qi Yu was the king of the Zodiac in their eyes, the one who deserved the most respect was the compassionate Grandmaster Zagru. Chapter 75. Sitting cross-legged, Qi Yu wanted to enter the state of cultivation. Unknowingly, a perfect face suddenly appeared in front of him. Yamu's smile was like the spring rain that nourished everything. Although he had only seen her twice, she was too perfect. Qi Yu's mouth revealed a faint smile. It was also a wonderful thing to be able to be an opponent of such a beautiful woman. He did not feel bad because he was attracted to Yamu. As a normal man, it was normal to like beautiful women. Compared to Su Dong, he was much stronger. Since seeing Yamu today, Su Dong's eyes had been a little dull, as if he was thinking about something. Fortunately, he did not drool, otherwise he would become a lard. Focusing his mind, he guided the 4 attributes of thundercloud force in his body to slowly operate. Because this was his first time cultivating after opening all 8 meridians, Qi was particularly cautious when cultivating. When Xie showed him Kiran's cultivation method, his memory was not complete. Therefore, there were some places where he had to rely on exploration during cultivation. Since experiencing the perfect thunder explosion, Qi was much more careful when cultivating than before. He only had 1 life, so it was better to be honest. Before Qi Yu's thundercloud force could even complete a small circle, his spiritual world was suddenly touched. Qi Yu hurriedly returned the thundercloud force to his dantian and concentrated his consciousness on the thundercloud force. "Brother Xie, what's the matter?" The spiritual aura was too familiar. It was Xie that slept in his body all day long. Of course there's something, and it's a good thing. If you have nothing to do and I disturbed your cultivation, then I won't say it first. Xie said, laughing loudly and seemed to be in a good mood. "Damn, brother Xie, when did you learn to keep people in suspense? What is the matter? Just say it." Xie said 2 things. First, while congratulating you on opening all 8 meridians, I want to teach you a set of cultivation methods. Cultivation method? Didn't you say that the ascending Qilin technique is my cultivation method? I'm only at the 3rd cloud. Is there a need to change the cultivation method? Qi Yu asked in confusion. Xie snorted and said, "Idiot, what I'm going to teach you is naturally the cultivation method of the ascending Qilin skill." Qi Yu said impatiently, "I've already seen the cultivation method of the ascending Qilin technique. Although I don't dare to say that I remember it, I've already seen it." But at least he remembered the gist of it. "I don't remember any techniques that I can cultivate while in the 3-cloud state. Even if there's a cultivation technique that can increase one's strength, it will have to wait until I'm older before I can cultivate it. After breaking through the first true form mutation, haven't I already practiced the 4 abilities that I can practice?" Xie said, "It looks like you don't want to learn it. Forget it. I'll continue sleeping." "Don't," Qi Yu said anxiously. "Tell me what is first. I'm just curious. I don't have any intention of delaying your service. What kind of cultivation method is it? You said that it belongs to the category of the ascending Qilin skill, so it definitely won't be the cultivation method of Xie. Boss, just tell me quickly. Don't make me anxious, okay? You have to know that an inch of time is an inch of gold." Xie smiled and said, "Well, you also know how to cherish time. Not simple, not simple. Well, then I'll tell you. This is definitely a good thing for you. Yes, I have shown you all the cultivation methods and techniques of the ascending Qilin skill. However, there are some hidden techniques that I didn't show you. Now, I'm going to teach you one of them. Qi was stunned for a moment. Then he understood and said with slight anger, Brother Xieji, you actually hid it from me. If you have a good cultivation method, why didn't you take it out earlier? Xieji smiled and said, You can't blame me for this. It's the blood of Kirin King that specifically instructed me when I became your shadow. Yes, those few cultivation methods of Kirin King are really magical. It's easier to improve your strength than the basic ascending Qilin skill. However, if you don't have a good foundation, cultivating rashly will only limit your future improvement. If it's not done well, because of impatience, there's a risk of Qi deviation. Therefore, Kirin King told me that only when your strength reaches a certain level, then I'm allowed to teach you these hidden techniques. Now that your 8 meridians are connected, and you've completed the first form mutation, you've already met the conditions of one of the techniques. That's why I jumped out to teach you before you started cultivating. My good intentions are really misunderstood. Why is my life so bitter? Qi said with some strangeness, Brother Xieji, you seem to have changed. You didn't talk to me like this before. Xieji, you said in a bad mood, I hang out with a 9-headed deep-sea nether snake every day. What do you think I'll become? You're good, enjoying the colorful world outside. As your shadow, I can only hide in your body and can't feel anything outside. When I'm bored, I can only chat with Senior Deep-Sea Nether Snake. He's a fierce beast, and he has cultivated for more years than me. With more contact with him, my style of speaking will naturally be closer to him. Well, less nonsense. Do you want to learn or not? Learn, of course I want to learn. Brother Xieji, hurry up and teach me. What kind of technique is this? It's so mysterious. Qi was secretly happy. Since it was hidden so deeply by the previous generation Kirin King, it must be a very powerful skill of Kirin. Xieji said, This technique is called Kirin Ascending Cloud Technique. As the name suggests, its main ability is to improve Kirin's thundercloud force at the fastest speed. However, from a certain perspective, this kind of cultivation method is harmful to the Qilin itself. Qi was stunned and said, Harmful? Then why do you still teach me? You just said that the conditions are met. Does it mean that after meeting the conditions, the harm is reduced? Xieji said, This time you're finally smarter. Yes, after meeting the conditions, the harm of Kirin Ascending Cloud Technique disappears. However, more than half of his benefits also disappear at the same time. Qi was puzzled and said, Brother Xieji, can you explain it clearly? I still don't quite understand. Xieji said, Well, don't change the topic. I will tell you now that Kirin Ascending Cloud Technique was created by a predecessor of your Kirin clan. The purpose of creating this technique is very simple. Because Kirin was still quite fragile when he was young, how to improve Kirin's strength as quickly as possible has always been the biggest hindrance of the Kirin clan. Later, a genius appeared in the Kirin clan. He relied on his comprehensive understanding of the ascending cloud technique, and after hundreds of years of hard research, he finally found a special cultivation method. This is the Kirin Ascending Cloud Technique that I'm going to teach you. This kind of technique is most beneficial for Kirin who is below the 3 clouds. If it is a Kirin who has just begun to practice the Ascending Cloud Technique, he only needs to retreat for 49 days to obtain this technique. He can improve his strength to the 3 clouds and complete the first origin mutation. What did you say? Chiyu's voice suddenly rose. He didn't expect the Ascending Cloud Technique to have such a powerful effect. It can be directly promoted to the 3 clouds, my God. Even if there are disadvantages, I am willing. Do you know how much energy I have spent to promote to the 3 clouds, and how much pain I have suffered? Brother Xieji, you are so cruel. Xieji said, Can you listen to me first? Yes, this Kirin Ascending Cloud Technique is indeed overbearing. However, only one Kirin practiced this technique since he was young. The Kirin clan prohibited this technique from being passed on to the future Kirin clan. Because the Kirin who practiced this technique, although he was promoted to the 3 clouds realm in a short period of time, he, who was extremely talented, could not improve a step after reaching the seven clouds realm no matter how hard he tried. Later, after careful discussion with Kirin, they found out. The reason why the ascending cloud technique could play such a good role was mainly because it overdrew Kirin's own potential. No matter what creature, a good foundation must be laid at an early age, and this ascending cloud technique played the role of pulling up seedlings to help them grow. Although the effect was extraordinary in a short period of time, with Kirin's frequent use, the disadvantages were also revealed. After several generations of Kirin's continued research and exploration, it was finally discovered that the Kirin ascending cloud technique was not without its merits. If a Qilin cultivated the Qilin ascending cloud's great art after its 8 meridians were unblocked and it had completed its first transformation, the harm would disappear. Because at this time, Kirin's meridians were basically fixed, and Kirin's blood was fully exerted. Although the potential could be overdrawn, it would not have any impact on the future. Especially at that time, there would already be Kirin Bead. With Kirin Bead, practicing the ascending cloud technique after the 3 clouds realm would only be beneficial for the cultivator. Chiyu said, "What is this benefit?" Xieji said, "It's very simple. Increase the speed of cultivation and condense your own thundercloud force faster and better. You also understand that the more condensed the thundercloud force is, the stronger the power it erupts when used. Just like the thundercloud force that you have used it many times these days. Is the power of the thunder only what you can exert? If the thundercloud force of the 4 clouds only has that kind of attack power, the previous generations of Kirin would cry. That is because your thundercloud force is not condensed enough, and it can erupt the compressed thundercloud force in an instant. This greatly reduces the attack power, and the Kirin ascending cloud technique is just a good way to solve this problem." Chi nodded and said, "I understand. Brother Xieji, thank you. Then you can start to teach me now." Xieji said, "I don't know how much this ascending cloud technique can improve your cultivation speed. However, you'd better be careful when cultivating. Although overdrafting your potential will not have any impact on your future, as long as you overdraft once, your body will need a period of time to recover. This kind of cultivation method is very extreme. It can be said that it hurts your own body to cultivate. Only when you don't encounter trouble, or when there is someone to protect you, can its effect be maximized." "Okay, I understand. Brother Xieji, as long as I have this cultivation method, I am not in a hurry to cultivate. I will try it slowly first." At the moment, Xieji explained the cultivation method of Kirin ascending cloud technique. The cultivation method was very complicated. Fortunately, Chiyu's spiritual force was strong enough to barely remember it. "Brother Xieji, you just said that there is more than one hidden cultivation method, right?" Chiyu smiled. Xieji said, "Of course. How do you think the glory of the Kirin clan came from? It is the accumulation of wisdom from generation to generation." Chiyu smiled and said, "Then, big brother, can you teach me a few more? At worst, I won't cultivate easily. I will practice after I have the foundation. This way, you don't have to come out and teach me." Xieji snorted and said, "Chiyu, I have crossed more bridges than you have walked. Don't even think about it. I dare not disobey the order of Kirin King. Unless your strength can reach the level of the real Kirin King, then I will really become your servant. As for now, you should practice honestly. As long as you meet the conditions, I will naturally teach you." Chiyu smiled bitterly and said, "Can't you make an exception?" After memorizing the Kirin ascending cloud technique, Chiyu became more and more interested in the secret techniques of Kirin. The wisdom of the Kirin clan for many years was still unimaginable even in today's technological society. "No, by the way, I just told you that I came to find you for 2 things. The other one is not for me, but for the Nether Snake." Chiyu said, "Brother Nether Snake? What happened to him?" Xieji said, "When you broke through the 3 clouds a few days ago, the water thundercloud force and thundercloud force rushed to the 4 clouds realm at once, draining the energy in one of the blue sea thunder beads. Senior Nether Snake asked me to ask you if you can give the empty bead to him. Because there is no energy in it, it is no longer limited by your body's aura. As long as you agree, you can give it to him." Chiyu said, "This thing is empty. What is the use? Also, why didn't Brother Nether Snake come to me himself?" Siege smiled and said, "It's not that he doesn't want to find you, but recently he is at a critical juncture in his cultivation and can't be distracted. So before he started his cultivation, he asked me to tell you when I came out. Don't underestimate the empty blue sea thunderbead. Although it is empty, do you know what? When a nether snake cultivated it in the deep sea, he needed to make a bead shell first, which was condensed with energy. Even for the deep-sea nether snake, it is not easy to condense a bead shell that can withstand enough energy impact and make it have all kinds of special abilities. If you're willing to give him the empty bead, his strength recovery speed will be much faster. If you can give him 9 empty beads, once he has the opportunity to crazily accumulate energy, maybe he can really recover to his original level." Chi didn't even think about it and said, "Okay, this is no problem. As long as I absorb the energy in the future, I will give all the empty beads to him. Since you can use it, you can use your spiritual power to directly bring the bead to him." Siege was a little surprised and said, "Don't you want to know what this empty bead is for you?" Chiyu said, "I don't want to know. I'm not a gentleman. If the benefits are particularly great, I am afraid I will not be willing to give it away. Brother Nether Snake is really pitiful. He has cultivated for so many years, but because of me, he was contaminated with the aura of thunder and lightning. Instead, he has become my thing. Now, if I can add some to him, of course, I am willing. What's more, he is originally my master." Siege said, "Good boy. This time the Nether Snake is happy. In fact, this empty bead is not very useful for you, because the Nether Snake's energy is Een. It has something in common with your Een Shi, and the snake bead is a great supplement to pure Yang. If you have it, it is nothing more than an additional place to store semen. For example, ordinary people have 1 testicle, and you have 1 more empty bead, it is 1 more. F***CK, you call it fun?" Chiyu scolded with a smile. "No need, 2 of them are enough for me. If I can't handle more wives in the future, I will borrow 1 from Brother Nether Snake." Siege laughed and said, "It will be strange if he is willing. Using a snake bead to store semen, this can only be done by you, the lewd Kirin. Well, these 2 things are enough, I'm going back. Oh, by the way, I have been feeling that something is wrong recently. I don't know what is going on outside, but in your body, I seem to feel a very familiar breath. It is very similar to your breath, but not completely. At first, I thought that Kirin appeared again, but later, when I carefully felt the breath, I found that it was not Kirin. His blood is far less pure than yours, and it feels more like me, the king of Siege. He seems to have 50% of Kirin's blood. However, that aura had only appeared twice, and he seems to be deliberately hiding it. The breath is very weak, and I can't feel who emitted it. With 50% of Kirin's blood, I'm almost sure that it is a mythological beast. If you have the chance to meet him in the future, you must make him your own. With such a strong blood of the king of mythological beasts, he must be a powerful mythological beast." Chiyu nodded and said, "I will try my best. However, except for you and Senior Nether Snake, I have not met any ferocious beasts or mythological beasts." Siege went back to sleep. Chiyu, who had just obtained the ascending cloud method of Kirin, was very excited. He almost did not hesitate to change his own practice method. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Chiyu carefully recalled everything that Siege had just told him. The practice of the ascending cloud method was very complicated. First of all, it had a lot to do with the basic practice of the ascending Qilin skill. When practicing the ascending Qilin skill, one must also practice another practice method at the same time. Under certain circumstances, these 2 methods could be combined together to be called the ascending cloud method of Kirin. Among them, not only must the route of the thundercloud force be absolutely correct, but at the same time, the timing of the operation must not have the slightest mistake. The principle of the ascending cloud method of Kirin was very simple. It was to exert Kirin's potential as much as possible and to stimulate his own Kirin's blood to accelerate the absorption of energy molecules in the air. When practicing this method, Kirin's body was like a huge vacuum cleaner, absorbing almost crazily. Although Chi-Yu already had the strength of the three clouds, he knew that the temptation of this practice method was huge. Even if he had surpassed the three clouds, he could still increase the speed of his thundercloud force absorption a lot. When he began to be reluctant to leave, Chi-Yu also warned himself that he must not excessively stimulate his own potential. Otherwise, his weak body may encounter trouble when recovering his potential. This was a bad habit that must not be cultivated. Therefore, what he needed to find now was a critical point where he could stimulate his potential without overexerting it, or a critical point where he could recover his potential in a very short period of time. Only in this way could he exert the effect of the ascending cloud method of Kirin without letting it affect his body. As the thundercloud force gradually operated, Chi-Yu's breathing began to become heavier. It was his first time practicing the ascending cloud method of Kirin, and he felt that it was particularly difficult. It was already very troublesome to multitask and practice two methods at the same time, not to mention he had to match the speed and time of the thundercloud force. Silver and black light gradually appeared around Chi-Yu's body. The silver and black lines that appeared when he was preparing to use the ultimate Kirin's arm appeared on the surface of his skin again, but this time they were much shallower than when he used the ultimate Kirin's arm. After all, the ultimate Kirin's arm was an attack method that completely stimulated all the potential and energy. The ascending cloud method of Kirin was also a cultivation method that stimulated one's potential. In a sense, they were similar. After exhaling a long breath, Chi-Yu took a deep breath like a whale, inhaling water. The thundercloud force fluctuation around his body suddenly became stronger. Then he slowly exhaled the turbid air in his chest, and the Kirin pearl on his chest gradually lit up. A colorful mist composed of purple, blue, red, and green gradually appeared around his body and re-entered his body as he breathed. Gradually, Chi-Yu understood the mystery of the Kirin's ascending cloud method. One of the main reasons why it could speed up his cultivation speed was that it no longer relied on breathing to absorb the energy molecules in the air like before. After the two cultivation methods merged, the pores all over his body gradually opened up and absorbed the energy molecules in the air as he breathed. In this way, the absorption of various attributes of energy became much richer. It then flowed into the veins from the pores and merged with the thundercloud force in his body. The reason why it was possible to directly cultivate the ascending cloud method was mainly because the veins in the body were not smooth at that time. He had to open the pores, and inevitably, there would be residual energy in the veins that could not be brought into the elixir field. As time passed, this energy would mutate and completely affect Kirin's body. And now, Chi-Yu's 8 meridians were opened. During cultivation, he could naturally absorb all the energy absorbed into his body for his own use. Although he did not know how much his cultivation speed had increased, with the completion of the first cloud cycle of the Kirin's ascending cloud method, Chi-Yu understood that the benefits of this cultivation method were almost immeasurable. With the Kirin ascending cloud method and the newly opened 8 meridians, Chi-Yu knew that even if he could not quickly upgrade the thundercloud force to the next level, at the very least, it could greatly enhance the cohesion and endurance of the thundercloud force. No wonder Xie said that he had entered the next stage. What he needed now was time. As long as he had enough time, his strength would definitely increase greatly. Before the appearance of Yamu and Soso, Chi-Yu felt that his strength was enough to deal with everything. However, since seeing them, especially after seeing Yamu, he subconsciously felt a sense of crisis in his heart. Although Yamu had not shown her ability, since she had inherited the divinity of the goddess of war, Athena. In that case, how could her ability be weak? What's more, she had not only inherited the ability of war. At the same time, she also had wisdom. Although Chi-Yu was reluctant to admit it, the first perfect woman he had seen in his life had become the biggest opponent in his mind. In the morning, the sun shone through the window and filled the entire room. The warmth and light made the air in the room much more refreshing. When Chi-Yu woke up from his cultivation, he found that not only had his thundercloud force become more condensed, but his spirit seemed to have also strengthened. Perhaps this was because he had forced himself to multitask. Kieran's ascending cloud technique was indeed different from the ascending Qilin tactics that he used to cultivate. In the past, after cultivating, he would always feel refreshed and indescribably comfortable. But this time he felt a little tired. The side effects of the ascending cloud technique had already occurred. The overdraft of potential could only be recovered after a short period of weakness. When he first started cultivating, Chi had already noticed this. Therefore, he was not too eager to succeed last night. Not only did he not speed up the operation of the Thundercloud Force, but he also slowed down the speed of the Thundercloud Force operation. This smart decision made him not feel too much discomfort in the morning. Chiyu opened his arms and let his body be completely bathed in the sunlight. He opened the window, and suddenly, a gust of fresh air rushed into his face. The large number of plants planted in the Dragonfield courtyard provided enough oxygen in the air. When he breathed in it, it gave him a refreshing feeling and made him feel refreshed. From now on, every day was very important to Chiyu. Time waited for no man. He had to find out the purpose of those Westerners coming to Yanwang as soon as possible so that he could carry out the next step with the Zodiac Guardian God warriors. At this moment, Chiyu looked through the window and saw the villa's courtyard door open. An off-road vehicle drove in from outside. He couldn't be more familiar with this car. The owner of the car was his disciple and could be said to be his brother-in-law. His heart skipped a beat. Chiyu knew that there must be something for Ji Xiao to rush over so early in the morning. Ming Ming did not go back last night. Perhaps the old man was angry. The matter was over. Now that he calmed down and thought about it, he was indeed a little overbearing. However, Chiyu did not regret it. For the sake of Ming Ming, even if he really had a fight with those Greeks yesterday, he would not hesitate. Of course, if this matter caused trouble, he would not be able to intervene in the affairs between countries. However, if the Greek guardian god made a move as the Zodiac King, he would not stand idly by. The reason why Ming Ming's engagement was set was definitely not because of how strong Greece was. On the contrary, Greece was a relatively weak country in the West. If they did not have a strong enough guardian god, let alone Yanhuang, even the surrounding countries would not be so respectful to him. Chiyu quickly washed up and went downstairs to the hall. Just then, Jita walked in from outside, and the two of them met face to face. At this time, it was still early. The servants were already preparing breakfast, but the others had not come down yet. "Master, you are up so early." Jita smiled and greeted Chiyu. Chiyu said, "What happened after yesterday? Did the old man say anything to you?" Jita smiled bitterly and said, "How could he not? Sai, I don't even know who the old man's real son is. Don't you think it's strange? The old man did not criticize you at all. He only scolded me a little. However, this matter was resolved quite satisfactorily. At least there was no conflict, and this made the old man very satisfied. However, Master, this time you have embarrassed the Yellow Flame Soul. Although Brother Tianhun is fine, the Blade Soul and Earth Soul are not very satisfied with you." Chiyu laughed and said, "Isn't there such a saying? Do your own thing and let others say whatever they want. I'm not from your Yellow Flame Soul, so it doesn't matter what they think of me." Jita smiled and said, "Actually, it's nothing. It's very simple to solve this kind of problem. How did you convince me back then? If there is a chance, just use it on them. The Blade Soul and Earth Soul are the representatives of the Yellow Flame Soul's internal attack warriors. Among them, the Blade Soul is even ranked above the Plant Soul. It is ranked second in the fighting order, while the Earth Soul is ranked 6th. Fighting order? Then is the first one Brother Tianhun? Chiyu asked curiously. Jita shook his head and said, "No, the 4 captains Heaven, Earth, Xian, and Huang are not in this order. The first in the fighting order is Killing Soul. He only carries out some very special missions. I have not seen him until now. However, I heard that this person's strength is extremely terrifying. He has carried out more than 30 missions, big and small, and every time he completed it cleanly." Chiyu smiled and said, "All right, let's not talk about this first. Does the old man want you to say something to me?" Chapter 76. Hearing Jita's words, Chiyu could not help but ponder. General Ji seemed to be too lenient with him. After all, he was also in the wrong this time. Was he trying to win him over? Or was he just showing concern for him because he was an elder? Perhaps it was a combination of both. All right, go back and tell the old man that I've remembered his words. Immoral, are you that free now? Since there's no problem, you can just make a call. Why do you have to personally make a trip so early in the morning? G sighed. Do you think I wanted to make this trip? I had no choice. I had to do it myself. Do you know? There's another reason why the higher-ups didn't investigate the matter between you and Ming Ming. They can't care about it now. It's also because of this that we really need the help of the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors. That's why the old man sent me to invite you. Chi Yu was surprised. Ask for our help? Your Yin Huang Soul Army is strong. What do you need our help for? Are you going abroad to carry out another mission? I'm afraid it's hard for me to spare the time now. Jida shook his head. Not abroad. His expression suddenly turned serious. Chi Yu, something big has happened in the capital. This matter concerns the safety and dignity of Yin Huang. The severity of this matter has alarmed the highest leadership of the country. Yesterday, when we returned, Brother Tian Hun and the rest were sent out. Now the entire Yin Huang Soul Army has been mobilized to save this crisis. Chi Yu was shocked. What happened? Why is it so serious? Jida said, just yesterday afternoon, there were several tragedies in the capital. Something that shouldn't have appeared in our country has suddenly appeared. What is it? It's vampires. A cold light flashed in Jida's eyes. He clenched his fists and seemed to gather all the strength in his body. Chi Yu's eyes lit up. Western vampires? Then it must be people from the Dark Parliament? Jida said, no. The vampires we found are not from the West. They're from our country. To be precise, they were infected with vampiric BD and became vampires. Moreover, these vampires who were suddenly infected seem to have lost their consciousness and rationality. They were constantly biting other ordinary people. As long as they were bitten, they would immediately join their ranks. Although we acted quickly, the capital was too big. There were nearly 30 million people in the capital. If vampiric BD really spreads, I'm afraid. Hearing Jida's words, Chi Yu immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. If it really continues to spread. Jida, how far has the situation developed? This was definitely done by the Dark Council. In the West, they were the only ones who had such a huge amount of vampire power. If we want to completely solve the problem, we must first eliminate the source. Damn it, I was just about to look for these guys. I didn't expect them to attack our country first. Jida forced a smile and said, I also know that it's the Dark Parliament's doing, but it's very difficult to find where these guys are hiding. Besides, the most important thing for us now is to find those infected people and deal with them properly. It's only been a day, and the situation hasn't reached a serious level yet. If ordinary people knew about this, I'm afraid it would immediately cause a huge panic. I understand, Jida. We, the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors, will fully support your Yin Huang soul on this matter. This is a matter of life and death for our country. Has something similar happened before? Chi Yu composed himself and sorted out the thoughts in his mind. Jida shook his head and said, it has never happened before. You also know that among you mutants, the East and the West are very different. Mutants from the West will not easily come to the East. This is the first time. Moreover, in my memory, the information on vampires is very different from this time. Our information shows that vampires generally do not cause excessive BD transmission when they drink blood, nor do they directly cause the victim to die. There are very few cases where the victim becomes a vampire and can continue to spread BD. We've already contacted Interpol and are gathering more information. This time, the Covenant of Darkness seems to be attacking Yin Huang from all sides. I really don't know if these guys have gone crazy. Chi Yu snorted coldly and said, no, these guys are not crazy. They have a purpose for doing this. Purpose? What purpose do they have? Jida asked with some surprise. Chi Yu said, they're doing this to create chaos and panic so that the country will focus all their energy on dealing with the problem of vampires. This way, they can focus all their energy on their own goal. It seems at this time, the target that these guys from the West have come to Yin Huang is really not simple. They actually dare to attack our country on such a large scale. It shows that they are determined to get their hands on this target. All right, then let's bury these guys in our Yanhuang land. His eyes flashed, and Chi Yu exuded a noble aura. He shouted in a low voice, "Everyone, get up. There's something." His voice did not sound loud, but it had a strong, penetrating power. It clearly spread to every room in the villa. After a while, everyone appeared in the hall. Chi Yu asked Jita to repeat what he had told him. After hearing about the vampire attack, the Zodiac guardian gods' expressions changed. Like Chi Yu, they immediately realized the seriousness of the situation. Jita said, "Luckily, vampires have a weakness. They can't go out during the day. Otherwise, it would be even more difficult now. Today is extremely important to us. We have to find the infected as much as possible. At the same time, we have to find the source and stop the spread of the vampires. Otherwise, the situation will change drastically tomorrow." Chi nodded and said, "Ryua, immediately inform Vol and little E to come to the Dragonfield courtyard. Also, inform the Shun family. They are powerful enough in the capital. Ask them to immediately assist the Yin Huang Soul sect in searching for those who have been bitten. Also, inform us of the situation. The situation is urgent. At the same time, call Hu Guang, Ian, and the rest. If possible, ask the Sacred Flame sect to assist us in this operation." Ryue agreed and immediately returned to her room to make the call. At this moment, Ming Ming suddenly said, "Big brother, what should we do with those who have been bitten and turned into vampires after we catch them? Is there a way to cure them?" Jita said sadly, "If there was a way to cure them, it would not be so serious. Now, those who are caught are temporarily locked together. If there is no other way, for the sake of social stability, I'm afraid." Ming Ming covered her mouth in shock. After all, she was a girl. It was inevitable that she would be a little frightened after hearing such a cruel thing. Modi said, "In that case, every time a vampire bites a person, it can be said that they have killed a person. These guys are too evil. Big brother Jita, I think it is equally important to find a way to cure them." Jita said, "Our country does not know much about vampires. There is also very little information. Now that the country has mobilized all the scientific research forces to carry out research, it will not be able to have results in a short period of time." Guan Ping said, "I know some information about vampires. In the past, when I was researching human genetics, I once heard a professor talk about vampires because of a special opportunity. There are many kinds of vampires, and their existence has a very long history. The BD infection you mentioned should be called blood transfusion BD. This BD has many characteristics, and it exists in the blood of vampires. For ordinary people, this BD has many characteristics, and it exists in the blood of vampires. This is a type of poison. Blood metamorphosis BD can be said to be a special poison that allows vampires to have a long life. At the same time, it is also a double-edged sword. It will affect the body of a vampire. However, once the blood metamorphosis BD comes into contact with the air, it will immediately evaporate. Therefore, when ordinary vampires suck blood, they will either suck too much blood and die, or their own BD will instantly spread to death. It is rare for the bitten person to become a vampire. Now the situation can only mean one problem. That is, the level of the vampires who come to our country must be very high. Only then can they possibly spread their BD to ordinary people. It is not fatal, and the BD will continue to spread." Chi Yu's gaze fell on Zagru and said, "Master, what do you think of this matter?" Zagru frowned deeply, and his eyes were full of worry. He clasped his hands in front of his chest and said, "Amitba, this is the calamity of Yin Huang. We can only do our best to deal with this matter. However, for creatures like vampires, our guardian deities of the East are not good at dealing with them." Hearing Zagru's words, Chi Yu's eyes flashed. He punched his left palm with his right fist and said happily, "That's right. We don't understand vampires, but that doesn't mean that no one does. The people from the Vatican are also in Yin Huang, and they might even be in the capital. We don't know how many years they have been fighting with the Dark Council, so they must be very familiar with vampires. To solve the problem of vampires once and for all, we have to find the people from the Vatican first." She had a Go back first and ask the old man to tell the higher-ups to contact the headquarters of the Vatican. I think they will definitely be very interested in vampires. Don't worry, we will act immediately on our side. All right, Master, I will leave first. After this matter is settled, I will treat everyone to a drink. He was also a straightforward person and immediately ran out after saying so. Su Dong said, Chiyu, I'm afraid things are not as simple as you think. Don't forget the purpose of the people from the Vatican coming to Yanhuang. The chaos in the capital won't do them any harm, right? Chiyu looked at Su Dong, and his voice suddenly became colder. I hope the Vatican won't do that. Otherwise, if the vampires come to our country to cause trouble, I might even bring a few ferocious beasts to the Vatican to play. Modi frowned slightly and said, Chiyu, you are really scary now. Chiyu smiled lightly and said, Of course, I'm not as straightforward as Vol. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, then don't blame me for not being polite. I have a strong point, and that is that I hold grudges. However, Brother Su is right. We still have to be on our guard against the Vatican. We can't put all our hopes on them. At this moment, Ryue walked down from upstairs. As she walked down, she said, The Sacred Flame sect is really efficient. Hu Guang said that they have already found the Dark Parliament's base in the capital. He and Iji have already brought people over. They want us to meet up with them directly and move together. Chiyu was shocked. So fast. Ryue smiled and said, Actually, after the Dark Parliament betrayed them, the Sacred Flame sect has already started to look for them. These people from the underworld have always held grudges. Let's go now. Zagru said, You must be careful on this trip. Don't get bitten by the vampires. We are not familiar with the specifics of the blood inheritance BD. Once you are poisoned, it will be very troublesome. Even if your body is different from normal people, you can't guarantee that you won't be affected. Chiyu nodded and said, Master, don't worry. We all have our own attribute mutation. It won't be easy for the vampires to bite us. When Vol and Little E arrive later, let them stay in the courtyard. Before the matter with the vampires is resolved, let them stay here. After all, Vol and Little E were still weak. Ensuring their safety was the most important. They left the Dragon Field courtyard. This time, they drove Ryue's extended Cadillac. Uncle Zhou personally drove them. Chiyu, Hai Ryue, Ming Ming, Su Dong, Guan Ping, and Modi sat in the back. They had gathered the strongest strength of the Guardian Warriors. According to the information given by Hu Guang over the phone, the Covenant of Darkness had settled down in an old factory in the southern suburbs of Beijing. It was less than 20 kilometers away from the place where they had traded with the Sacred Flame sect. The Sacred Flame sect had not yet figured out how strong the Covenant of Darkness was. Therefore, when Ryue was talking to Hu Guang, she told him not to act rashly before the Guardian Warriors arrived. Ryue said, Our abilities are different, but relatively speaking, everyone's attack power is very strong. In order to minimize the attack power and maximize the effect, we will split into two groups later. One group will be made up of Chiyu, Ming Ming, and Su Dong. Guan Ping, Modi, and I will form the second group. We will attack those vampires from different directions. Chiyu nodded and said, This distribution is very reasonable. Our abilities are more balanced. I fought with vampires once, and from the situation, I can tell that their bodies are very tough. Furthermore, their greatest characteristic is that they are extremely fast. They also have some special dark abilities. I suspect that different vampires have different dark abilities. As they have some abilities similar to bats, they are very agile when it comes to dodging attacks. Therefore, when we attack, we will try our best to launch an area attack. This way, no matter how sensitive their senses are, it will be very difficult for them to escape from us. I think that since the Covenant of Darkness has entered our country on a large scale this time, it will not only be the vampires. I'm afraid that there will be other members, including the werewolves. Everyone must be careful when we move and prioritize your own safety. Guan Ping reached into his bosom and took out a box. When he opened the box, it was filled with silver needles. The needles were about 5 inches long and very thin. They were shining with a faint cold light. Everyone divide them. These silver needles were originally used to extract blood samples for experiments. Don't think that they are very thin, but they are hollow inside. In my impression, besides sunlight, the vampires are most afraid of silver. I think that as long as we use these silver needles to pierce their hearts, no matter how strong their bodies are, we will be able to kill them. Chiyu picked up a silver needle and carefully looked at it. He smiled and said, "This is really good stuff. It doesn't need to leave any traces when killing people. I think that in the future, all of us Zodiac warriors should carry some. These silver needles are so thin that they don't take up any space at all. It's perfect for us paranormals to use them to kill people. It would be even better if we put some poison on them." Guanping was speechless for a while. "Boss, the cost of making these silver needles is very high. Our country doesn't have this kind of craftsmanship to make such a precise hollow silver needle." Ming Ming giggled and said, "Chiyu, I think it's a waste that you don't become an assassin." Chiyu smiled and said, "It's good that it's hollow. If we put poison in it and insert it into a person's body, the poison will naturally enter the person's body. This thing is definitely a necessary weapon for killing people. Come, let's divide it." As he said that, he grabbed a handful and directly put it into his Kirin bead. The others also took some. Although the silver needles were very thin, because they were made of silver, they were not light. They felt a little heavy in their fingers. Chiyu's phone rang. He picked it up and saw that the call was from Jita. "Master, why aren't you at Dragonfield Courtyard?" Jita asked with some doubt. Chiyu said, "We already have some clues. We're now on the way to find those guys from the Dark Council." "Oh, you don't have to come. I will inform you if there's any news." The Sacred Flame sect was, after all, an underworld organization. For the sake of Hu Guang, Ian, and the rest, Chiyu felt that it was better not to let the two sides meet so easily. Moreover, with these people around, if they still couldn't solve the problem, then more people from the Yin Huang Soul sect might not be able to achieve any good results. "Master, we have already contacted the Vatican. They said that the Vatican has people in Yin Huang to capture these people from the Dark Council. They said that they want us to contact a guy called Lu Yuan." "It's him?" Chiyu's heart skipped a beat, and he said, "Give me your number. I have dealt with this Lu Yuan before. Let's see if we can get anything from him." "All right, Master. If you find anything, please contact me as soon as possible. I will tell the higher-ups to mobilize the Yin Huang Soul sect and the army to support you." Jita immediately gave Chiyu Lu Yuan's number. After hanging up, Chiyu revealed a cold smile at the corner of his mouth. The Vatican's reason was rather dignified. However, were they really here to capture people from the Dark Council? It probably wasn't that simple. As he thought about it, he immediately dialed Lu Yuan's number. "Hello." Lu Yuan's melodious voice came from the other end. In Chinese, "Mr. Paladin," Chiyu said unhappily. He had never been interested in foreign languages. "Oh, who is it?" Lu Yuan asked, a little surprised. "We have met before. Think about it yourself. I think the Vatican has already informed you. I could be considered to be representing Yin Huang now, and I am preparing to deal with the people from the Dark Council. Doesn't the Vatican have a deep grudge with them? In that case, come and help." Lu Yuan's memory was obviously very good, and he immediately recognized Chi Yu's identity from the voice. "So it's you. I already know about the Dark Council. This bunch of people actually came to the Yin Huang Republic to cause trouble. They simply have no respect for the Vatican. Mr. Chi, don't worry. We will definitely help you. Have you found where they are staying?" Chi told him the address. "We are on our way there now. When will you and your people arrive?" Lu Yuan said, "I can't say for sure. Mr. Chi, you might have also guessed that the capital of your country is too big, and I'm not familiar with the roads. I can only say as soon as possible." Chi said, "That's good. Do you know who the people from the Dark Council are? How can they spread the vampire BD among ordinary people on such a large scale?" Lu Yuan pondered for a while and said, "I'm afraid things are a little troublesome. To be able to spread the vampire BD in such a way, they must be at least at the Grand Duke level. The vampires are divided into many families, and each family has at most 2 or 3 Grand Dukes. The entire vampire family is led by the 3 Grand Princes, And these 3 Grand Princes are, without exception, members of the 13 members of the Dark Council. I think this time, the Dark Council has sent at least 1 Vampire Prince and more than 5 Grand Dukes. That is why they could create so much trouble in just one night. Mr. Chi, although I know you're very strong, these high-level vampires are very scary. But these high-level vampires are very scary, so you have to be careful. According to the accurate information I received, the members that the Dark Council sent to your country this time are mainly vampires. I don't know the exact situation of other races. All right, I understand. Hurry to their base as soon as possible. It is daytime now. I think it is more suitable for us to act. Lu Yuan said, "Oh, by the way, there's something I have to remind Mr. Chi. Although vampires are afraid of sunlight, at the Earl rank and above, sunlight can only affect them, but it can't make them afraid. As for the Grand Duke rank, but when they reach the Grand Duke level, sunlight can only make them hate it." Damn, you mean that high-level vampires can also act in the daytime? Chi Yu's heart tightened. If that was the case, the situation would be even more difficult to control. Mr. Chi, don't worry. Although high-level vampires are not affected by sunlight, the vampire servants infected by the vampire BD can only hide in the dark during the day. Oh, by the way, the most harmful things to vampires are high-purity, fire energy, silver weapons, and condensed sunlight. Their bodies are very tough. The stronger they are, the stronger their body's defense, and they are very fast. Coupled with their self-proclaimed black magic, they are the most difficult race to deal with in the Dark Council. All right, I understand. You guys come as soon as possible. After hanging up the phone, Chi told the rest of the Zodiac Guardian Warriors what Li Yuan had told him. They didn't feel any fear. After all, the Zodiac Guardian Warriors had never fought against a creature like vampires before. They did not know how strong they were. On the other side, Li Yuan looked at his phone and revealed a faint smile. He said to himself, the Covenant of Darkness finally couldn't help but make the first move. Let them fight it out themselves. It's best if both sides suffer. These guys from the underworld have helped us clear the obstacles. Maybe God will forgive their previous crimes. Jingnan Soy Sauce Factory was originally a famous condiment manufacturer in the capital. A few years ago, due to fierce competition and its own backward equipment, it was gradually squeezed out of the historical stage. After struggling for a few years, it was defeated by its peers. The factory covered an area of more than 10,000 square meters. In the westernmost part of the factory, there was a large warehouse. The warehouse was originally used to store raw materials. Ever since the factory closed down, the owner wanted to sell this place. However, because of the price, they could not come to an agreement. Therefore, the factory was abandoned here. The factory was full of weeds. At this time, they had already withered and looked a bit miserable. The warehouse that stored the condiments was about 7 meters high, 50 meters long, and 10 meters wide. About 5 meters high, there was a small window every 3 meters. However, for some reason, the window was completely sealed with black cloth. The old man who was originally guarding the door of the factory was standing in the guardroom. Even the window of the guardroom was sealed with black cloth. The old man's eyes flickered with a dull and cold gaze. There was a purplish-black bite mark on his neck. Inside the warehouse, there were more than 20 coffins. Most of the coffins were black. On the surrounding walls, the cold blue light made the warehouse, which was originally used to store raw materials, look even colder. It was like a huge tomb. In the middle of the warehouse, there was a coffin that was particularly eye-catching. Because it was different from the other coffins, its entire luster was shining with a strange red light. A young man who looked to be in his 20s was leaning against the coffin. He held a crystal goblet of red wine in his hand and gently swirled it. His other hand was rhythmically tapping on the coffin, looking leisurely and contented. There was a dark red liquid in the red wine. Under the cold light, it shone with a faint luster like a ruby. The young man took a small sip of the liquid in the glass and said with some intoxication, "Well, it's really delicious. I didn't expect the blood of Easterners to be so much sweeter than us Westerners. If I had known, I would have come to this beautiful and rich country earlier." The young man had a head of short golden hair that was neatly combed. Every movement he made naturally exuded a noble aura. His handsome face was a little too fair. If it wasn't for his pair of constantly shining red eyes, he could be called a handsome young man from the West. His eyes looked very cold. Although his voice was intoxicated, there was no change in his eyes. He was tall and wore a well-ironed tuxedo. One look, and anyone could tell that he was a person who cared a lot about appearance. In front of the young man, there were two other people. Compared to him, the two of them looked a lot worse. One of them was about 9 meters tall. He had a head of strange gray hair, and his eyes were a tawny color that ordinary humans did not have. Although he did not look very strong, it was easy to feel the explosive power hidden in his body under the gray trench coat. The other person looked a little scary. Jita's body was already considered very tall among ordinary people. However, if Jita stood in front of this person, he would look like a child. This person's height had reached a terrifying height of more than 3 meters. If he were to play basketball, perhaps no one would be able to compete with him. A pair of brown trousers were propped up by his strong leg muscles. The leather boots on his feet were unimaginably big. It was difficult to judge their size with the naked eye. After all, not many people had seen such big shoes before. His naked upper body was full of exaggerated muscles. Because his muscles were so developed, some parts looked a little deformed. The texture of his muscles was clearly visible. Thick blue veins were densely covered under his skin like electric wires. His arms were as thick as an ordinary person's waist. His big head was definitely as big as a dipper. His punk-like hair stood erect. The wrinkles on his fierce face seemed to be able to hold a pencil. The cold winter seemed to have no effect on him. At this time, he was holding a huge plate in his left hand. His right hand was grabbing something dripping with blood and stuffing it into his mouth. He ate it very happily. It turned out to be a heart. Fortunately, the heart looked very big and didn't seem to belong to a human. When the giant heard the young man's words, he couldn't help but let out a muffled groan. The whole warehouse seemed to shake. Good my ass. Damn it. You have someone to drink blood, but I can only eat cow hearts here. Tonight, I'm going to act with you vampires. You guys drink blood, and I'll eat hearts. This time, I'm going to eat to my heart's content. The young man smiled and said, Strong Bear King Baslu, I think it's better for you to stay here. Although you bear people are the strongest, once you meet people from the Yin Huang Emperor Kingdom, you won't be as agile as us noble blood breeds. This place is very good. It's far from the city and is spacious enough. It's better for you to stay here with Wolf King Garnet. After we stir up chaos in the capital, we can start the real operation. Chapter 77. The young man twirled the wine glass in his hand elegantly. Is it really that simple? The Yin Huang Republic is a powerful nation. As far as I know, their guardian of the East once made the entire West tremble. I think it's best if you don't think too highly of yourself. We are both members of the Dark Council. There's no need for me to lie to you. The human heart is delicious, but if we really anger the Yin Huang people, we'll be in big trouble. Wolf King Garnet said coldly, Klinsman, last time, your subordinates and my subordinate, Panther Lady, came here to set up a base. However, there was no news of them after that. I need an explanation from you. Klinsman smiled slightly and said mockingly, Explanation? What explanation is there? They were probably all killed by the Yin Huang people. Gannett, that's just a little Panther Lady. Why are you so serious? Don't you have enough werewolves under you? Klinsman, you're not playing dumb with me, are you? You should know that she's the most perfect Panther Lady I have, and my son has taken a liking to her. You vampires have always been well informed, haven't you? Last time, I sent my men to coordinate with your people here because of your request. Now that there's a problem, you have to give me an explanation. Klinsman said coldly, All right then, I'll send someone to investigate. Gannett, you're still as impulsive as ever. You're now one of the Dark Council members. I hope you'll put the interests of the Council first. Otherwise, even though I just released the primordial red gold blood, I can still punish you on behalf of the Council. Gannett was just about to say something when the Bear King, Baslu, said, Enough. You two should stop arguing. But I'm curious, Klinsman, as a vampire prince, why would you give your primordial red gold blood to an Easterner? if I remember correctly. Even if you're a prince, you can only use the primordial red gold blood once in your life. Could it be that an Easterner woman is so charming that you're willing to use your own energy to release the primordial red gold blood? The corner of Klinsman's, I twitched. I naturally have my own reasons for doing this. I had never thought that I would give the precious red gold origin blood to an Easterner. However, when I saw this woman last night, I couldn't suppress the excitement in my heart and chose to do this without hesitation. Even now, I don't regret it. She looked too much like Christy. No, it shouldn't be said about her looks, but her temperament, big, beautiful eyes, long, dark red hair, and the faint melancholy between her brows. She was like a cute, melancholic kitten that made people feel pity for her. As the noble and pure-blooded prince of the Dracula family, Klinsman Dracula, my heart was filled with the urge to turn her dyed hair into the dark red that I was familiar with. Her temperament, her eyes, they were all too much like my dead Christy. Back then, when Christy and I were young, although we were members of the Dracula family, we were often bullied by the children of other families because our parents died early and no one came to protect us. My poor sister, Christy, was only 19 years old that year. She was chosen by the young master of the Osmond family in a vampire gathering. At that time, I tried my best to save my sister, but I couldn't do anything because I was too weak. I could only watch as my sister was taken away by those bastards. The next day, when I waited at the entrance of the Osmond family, what I got was a corpse. Do you know what the Osmond family said? They said that Christy committed suicide. I knew that my poor sister had a heart as strong as gold, and that her suicide must have been because she couldn't bear the humiliation. However, when I brought her body home, I found out that she was still raped, and she was raped after she died. With a crisp crack, the red wine glass in Klinsman's hand turned into powder. His handsome face became somewhat distorted, and his body emitted a layer of evil dark red light. Wolf King Garnet was secretly shocked. He knew that Klinsman wasn't bragging. Releasing the primordial red blood clearly didn't affect his true strength. As a senior member of the Dark Parliament, Klinsman's strength was indeed much stronger than his. The Bear King Balu said, "Was it because of this that you destroyed the Osmond family?" Ha ha! Klinsman let out a strange laugh. My sister is dead. My only family member is dead. Although I hated them to the core, I knew that I was no match for the Osmond family, and no one in my own family would help me. That's why. It's because of my strength. That's why from then on, I trained hard and spent every day training. In order to advance faster, I even risked my life to sneak into the Vatican to kill their radiant knights and absorb their blood to stimulate the growth of my strength. I did it. In a mere 500 years, I turned from an ordinary member of the Blood Clan into a prince of the Blood Clan. With my strength, I killed that arrogant uncle of mine during a gathering of the Blood Clan and sat in my current position. But what's the use of all this? Even if I became the most powerful prince of the Blood Clan, even if I sat in the position of chief and destroyed the Osmond family, I still couldn't save Christy's life. Christy is an eternal pain in my heart. That's why when you saw that the Asian girl from yesterday looked like your dead sister, you gave her the embrace with the primordial red blood. Yes, I have the ability to protect my sister now. This time, I won't allow anyone to hurt her. The red glow in Klinsman's eyes became much gentler. His gaze fell on the dark red coffin beside him, and his left hand gently stroked the top of the coffin. Wolf King Garnet's nose suddenly twitched, and his eyes rolled slightly. I think I smell the scent of living people, and there are many of them. They seem to be coming for us. Klinsman seemed to have recovered from his memories, and said with some surprise, "They were exposed so quickly. I didn't expect the Yen Huang people to react so quickly. Baslu, you bear people won't be affected during the day. Don't you want to eat people's hearts? This is a good opportunity. I really hate the sun. If you can't hold on, Garnet, and I will bring people to help you." Baslu chuckled and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "Leave it to me. Kids, get up." He stomped his right foot on the ground, and the entire warehouse shook. In a dark corner, tall figures stood up one after another. There were 8 of them in total, and every one of them was topless like Bear King Baslu. They were more than 2 meters tall, and they were also muscular and inhuman. With heavy footsteps, They gathered in front of Bear King Baslu. The number of bear people in the Dark Council was far less than the number of vampires and werewolves. But their battle strength was indispensable to the Dark Council. Be it in terms of attack or defense, the Bearmen warriors were the best fighting force for the Dark Parliament against the Church's Knights of Light. Even the higher-ranked paladins would not want to meet such a powerful and resilient fellow. Klinsman had said that wercats weren't fast compared to high-level vampires. Not only was the Bearmen not slow, but it was also much faster than ordinary people. In the Dark Council, an ordinary werecat status was comparable to that of a vampire viscount. Even though Baslu had only brought 8 bearmen with him, they were all berserk bearmen, the strongest of the bearmen. The people inside, listen up. You've been surrounded. I'll give you a chance. Put down your weapons and slowly walk out of the gate. Otherwise, you'll be killed on the spot. A loud voice came from outside, using a megaphone. Wolf King Garnet clenched his hands, which were covered in green veins. He said disdainfully, "Are these Yin Huang people idiots?" Baslu didn't know Yin Huang's language, but since the people outside were shouting in English, he could naturally understand them. He laughed wildly and roared, "Great, then I'll slowly walk out from the main gate." Just then, Vampire Prince Klinsman's expression suddenly changed. "Oh no, be careful." Boom, 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 boom. The ground trembled, and the violent shock waves destroyed the entire warehouse in an instant. The air was filled with the smell of smoke and gunpowder. The entire warehouse had been reduced to rubble. The force of the explosion was too strong. The ground where the warehouse had been was blasted into a 3-meter-deep pit. Smoke rose into the air like a mushroom cloud. The place where the warehouse had been was completely engulfed in flames. Chiyu looked strangely at Hu Guang, who was putting down the rocket launcher. "Didn't you say to let them come out and surrender?" Hu Guang chuckled and said, "Do you think they'll surrender? To deal with these guys, launching an attack when they're careless is the best choice. This is also my style, Hu Guang's style." Today, he was dressed the same as the day he met Chiyu and Hai Ruyue. It was as if he only had this set of clothes and had never bathed. Especially in this cold winter, he was still wearing those oversized slippers. With a cigarette dangling from the corner of his mouth, he looked as wretched as one could get. However, it was this wretched guy who had thrown more than 15 rockets into the warehouse with a wave of his hand. According to Ian, these were not ordinary rockets, but high-explosive incendiary bombs. They were perfect for dealing with the vampires. Modi said, "If we had known this would happen, why would we have come? You guys are too bloodthirsty." Hu Guang looked at Mod lecherously and said, "Long-legged sister, this is just the appetizer. I'm afraid those guys won't die so easily. F***, you jinx. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak." Ian's voice was filled with surprise. Everyone, including the Zodiac Guardian God warriors led by Chi Yu and the 200 elites of the Sacred Flame sect, saw a strange scene. A layer of black and red air slowly rose from the deep crater created by the rocket launcher. Wherever it passed, the powerful incendiary bomb's burning ability actually disappeared. The flames became weaker and a cold aura rose. Hu Guang was a little surprised and said, F***, they didn't die even after such an explosion. That's fierce. Chi Yu said in a low voice, "They're the elites of the Covenant of Darkness. If they died so easily, they would have been killed by the Vatican long ago. Everyone, be careful." As he spoke, he shot a look at Ruyue. Ruyue immediately led Modi and Guan Ping to the other side. At this moment, black and red light rose from the huge crater created by the rocket launcher. It was a terrifying coffin. Each coffin was surrounded by black and red light. Following that, low growls followed. More than 10 Westerners with grayish-white hair and ferocious faces jumped out of the crater together with the coffins. All of them looked extremely strong and emitted a layer of gray aura. Their yellow eyes were filled with ferocity. Behind them, 8 huge figures appeared. They were the 8 raging bear men. Ian said in surprise, F***, these guys are too sturdy. Do we need to use nuclear bombs to kill them? Hu Guang said angrily. If we use nuclear bombs, we'll be finished first. Kids, attack them. CK. I don't believe that armor-piercing missiles won't be able to cause them any harm. His seemingly casual words were in absolute order to the members of the Sacred Fire sect. The 200 members of the Sacred Fire sect who were scattered in the surroundings immediately unleashed a storm-like attack toward the three major races of the Covenant of Darkness. Hu Guang and Ian were very dissatisfied with the rocket launcher attacks earlier. However, they did not know that although the earlier wave of attacks did not seem to have any effect, they had actually caused great harm to the elites of the Covenant of Darkness. This time around, the Vampire Prince Klinsman, the Bear King Bosru, and the Wolf King Garnet had brought along the elites of their races. Klinsman had brought along a total of 5 Vampire Grand Dukes and 10 Vampire Viscounts. In Europe, the Dracula clan, which was known for their pure bloodline, was the #1 clan among the vampires. However, this was only half of their power. This time around, there were only 2 Grand Dukes and a few Marquises and Earls left to guard their clan. As the clan leader, Klinsman had come personally. The Wolf King Garnet had brought along the elite werewolves under him. Compared to ordinary werewolves, these werewolves had faster speed and sharper attacks, as well as some simple dark abilities. The Bear King Bosru had also put in a lot of effort. He had brought along the most elite, ferocious bearmen under him. Although the rocket launcher attacks earlier did not kill or injure the main force of the Covenant of Darkness elites, they had still killed 6 of the weaker vampire viscounts under the Vampire Prince Klinsman. In the center of the explosion, 7 or 8 werewolves had also been killed. Only the ferocious bearmen, who had extremely strong defenses, had not suffered any damage. At this moment, the most furious one was the Wolf King Garnet. Half of the 20 werewolves he had brought with him had been killed. How could he not be furious? Bullets rained down on the elites of the Covenant of Darkness. The Wolf King Garnet roared angrily and chanted a strange incantation. All the werewolves howled at the same time. Their bodies, which were already very sturdy, suddenly swelled up. In an instant, they had become huge, muscular men about 5 meters tall. Gray hair spread from their heads to their backs. Their mouths protruded forward, revealing their white fangs. Their hands and feet changed the most. Not only did they swell up the most, but they also had huge, sharp, and thick claws. Their bodies emitted a gray aura as they pounced forward. Although the speed of the werewolves could not compare to the dexterous figures of the vampires, their instantaneous explosive power was still very strong. However, these werewolves had indeed underestimated the power of the armor-piercing bullets. Although their bodies had become extremely tough after transforming into werewolves, they still could not completely withstand the attack of the armor-piercing bullets. Large amounts of blood splattered from the bodies of the 4 werewolves at the very front. Although their momentum did not decrease, their bodies had already suffered serious injuries. However, the Covenant of Darkness had been able to contend against the Church for so many years. Naturally, they had their own unique points. Seeing that they could not withstand the hail of bullets, all the werewolves immediately chose to retreat. The place they retreated to was where the 8 berserk bearmen were. The 8 huge bearmen, who were more than 2 meters tall, let out angry roars as their bodies doubled in size. Standing together, they looked like a huge wall. Their unbelievably strong bodies, which were 4 meters tall, were able to withstand the attacks of the bullets. The armor-piercing bullets actually caused sparks when they hit their bodies. Their muscles were like steel. At the same time, other than the dark red coffin beside Klinsman, the other coffins floating in the air exploded at the same time. The rest of the coffins exploded at the same time. Streaks of black figures soared into the sky. The 5 vampire Grand Dukes and the remaining 4 vampire Viscounts had completed their transformations at the first instant. They released the wings on their backs, and their fangs protruded from their lips. Circles of dark red light rapidly spread toward the Sacred Flame sect. The moment the bullets came into contact with the light, they actually disappeared into thin air. It was as if they had fallen into an abyss. Vampire Prince Klinsman, Bear King Basil, and Wolf King Garnet appeared at the same time. Basil roared angrily. Despicable Yin Huang people. How dare you launch a sneak attack? Kill them. Don't let me see a complete corpse. After the raging bear men entered their berserk state, they were like huge killing machines. They took huge strides and charged toward the sacred flame sect. With every step they took, the ground would shake. The demon werewolves that were covering behind them followed closely. As soon as they got close, they would immediately display their powerful lethality. The high-level vampires flying in the air were not afraid of bullets at all. Under the cover of their dark special ability, the engulfing spell, the bear men and werewolves were even more fearless. The three kings of the Covenant of Darkness had no doubt that as long as their subordinates charged into the enemy's camp, it would be an all-out massacre. Despicable? How can we compare to you, creatures of darkness? A tall figure suddenly appeared in the middle of the battlefield. The shooting stopped, and the Sacred Flame Sect's followers retreated at the fastest speed under the command of Hu Guang and Ian. The person who had appeared in the middle of the battlefield was Qi Yu, with Ming Ming and Su Dong by his side. The three of them emitted a dazzling glow at the same time. Qi Yu's four-colored thundercloud force flashed simultaneously, while Ming Ming's body emitted a layer of faint gold. This was the color that had changed after she had absorbed Qi Yu's blood. Under the golden glow, the originally five-colored energy had turned into a seven-colored one. As for Su Dong, he emitted a milky white glow as usual. His usually smiling face now revealed a grave expression. The bearmen who had entered a berserk state did not care who their enemies were. When they realized that Qi Yu and the other two were in front of them, they charged over without hesitation. Qi Yu let out a cold snort and bellowed, "Zodiac Guardian Warrior, Origin Mutation." Black and silver light soared into the sky under the seven-colored golden light and the domineering 100 light. The clothes on Qi Yu's upper body disappeared in an instant, revealing his bronze-colored skin. The Kirin pattern on his chest became abnormally clear under the stimulation of the thundercloud force. He raised his head that was the king of the divine beasts arrogantly, and every strand of hair on the Kirin pattern appeared abnormally clear. At this moment, the huge black and silver light in the sky also took shape. Qi Yu's long black hair hung loosely behind his back. Unknowingly, a strand of silver hair had appeared in the middle of his hair. His eyes, which were silver when he used the Qilin cloud power, had turned back to black. They were as black as ink, like two black gems without any impurities. His whole body was covered with a layer of black scale armor, which flickered with a faint cold light. Under the effect of the dark red Kirin cloak, Qi Yu looked like a demon at this moment. However, he did not have a mask on his face like the other Zodiac Guardian warriors. His right arm was the most special. Only his right arm was not covered with black scales. The armor on his right arm was also black, but the black armor was inlaid with silver patterns. The silver patterns were very special. They were silver whorls, and there were also spikes on the whorls. It felt like a silver sun. With a loud roar, an indescribable power suddenly burst out. Although the Berserk Bearman and the Demon Wolfman were dark creatures of the West, the strength they borrowed still belonged to wild beasts. Whether it was a wolf or a bear, facing the aura of the divine Beast King Qilin, their momentum suddenly slowed down. Even the Berserk Bearman subconsciously felt the danger in front of them. Ming Ming's body was already covered with seven-colored feathers. Apart from the two more colors than before, the seven-colored feathers were also shrouded in a pale golden radiance. She was very clear that the seven-colored feathers should have appeared after her second stage origin mutation. Although there was no other second stage origin mutation at this time, the seven-colored feathers had already greatly improved her ability. However, just the rainbow-colored feathers alone had greatly increased his strength, especially that faint layer of golden light. It had greatly condensed the cloud energy in his body, and all of this was brought to him by Qi Yu's Qilin bloodline. Before the appearance of Qi Yu, Su Dong had always been ranked second among the Zodiac Guardian warriors, only second to Ru Yue. At this time, after completing the origin mutation, the pair of tiger wings on his back spread out. His whole body emitted the aura of the King of Beasts. The white tiger fur all over his body was mixed with a few black patterns. The toughness of the fur was not inferior to the armor. Seeing the three suddenly transform, Vampire Prince Klinsman's pupils contracted. He said in a low voice, "It's the Zodiac Guardian warriors from the east. I didn't expect them to appear. Let's go. We can't let them hurt us." Just as the three kings of the Covenant of Darkness were about to join the battle, a cold voice with a strong aura sounded behind them. "Your opponents are us." Hai Ryue's body was covered in a layer of sparkling white scales, and two large wings spread out from her back. The scales covered every part of her body, and there was a white mask on her face. The mask was in the form of light and shadow. It looked a little illusory. The mask was exactly the same as her face. Only a pair of bright eyes could be seen, covering every part of her body. The 100-colored scales kept extending from her waist down to a short battle skirt that was only 8 inches long. Her upper body was also covered with thick scales like armor, outlining the perfect curve of her chest. In the center of her chest, a milky white bead the size of a ping-pong ball was constantly emitting waves of white halos. She had a head of strange blue hair that was draped over her back. There were 2 protrusions on the top of her head, and the armor on her shoulders had sharp, triangular points. Her dragon eyes were shining, turning from blue to red like 2 rubies, forming a sharp contrast with the white scales on her body. She spread her arms to the sides of her body, and the 3 sharp claws on her fingers flickered with a cold light. On either side of Hai Ryue was the dog Zodiac Guanping and the rabbit Zodiac Modi. Even Shiyu saw their appearances after their Zodiac transformations for the first time. Guanping's body was covered with a layer of golden fur, and his face was covered by the golden light. His limbs were several times thicker than before, and his muscles were bulging. Similar to the demon werewolf, his hands and feet had grown sharp claws, but the difference was that his claws were thicker and stronger. His body had also expanded to about 2.5 meters tall, and his hair was 3 times longer than before. His golden hair hung on both sides of his shoulders, and his stalwart body was emitting a faint golden light, making him look like a lion mastiff. He was not a simple zodiac beast, but a lion mastiff. The feeling of being filled with power was not suppressed by Hai Ryue's might, even when he was next to her. Compared to Guanping, Modi looked much gentler. After her zodiac transformation, her entire body was covered with snow-white fur, and a lustrous luster enveloped her body. She did not have sharp claws, nor did she have a strong body. But after her zodiac transformation, the outline of her slender thighs became even more perfect. Her calves looked a little illusory, and it was impossible to see them clearly. Although the white light didn't emit any energy, it gave off a mysterious feeling. Wolf King Garnet didn't say anything. His actions represented everything. His figure flashed, and he immediately rushed out. After all, a wolf king was a wolf king, and the moment he rushed out, it immediately showed that he was different from ordinary werewolves. His wolf transformation didn't slow down his charge in the slightest. His originally gray hair turned silver, and his body instantly expanded to about 3 meters tall. His yellow eyes turned golden, and he let out a deep roar. After transforming into a wolf, his speed instantly doubled. His 2 huge and sharp front claws tore through the air, and 10 silver blades of light shot out, heading straight for Hai Ryue and the others. With a shout, the one who rushed out was actually Modi. As a rabbit Zodiac, she didn't have the ability to fly, but when it came to jumping ability, none of the Zodiac Guardian warriors could compare to her. Her body instantly sprang up, and without hesitation, she met Garnet's attack head-on. Her legs left a series of elegant afterimages in the air, and 10 white lights shot out at almost the same time, accurately meeting Garnet's attack head-on. The white and silver lights collided in the air, and an ear-piercing sound of air being torn apart was immediately heard. Garnet, the Wolf King, was clearly unaffected, while Modi's body paused for a moment. However, she still courageously met Garnet's attack head-on. Bear King Boris's ferocity was revealed by the battle before him. He thumped his extremely strong chest muscles with both hands, and charged forward with large strides. His originally huge body expanded once again at this moment, and the Bear King's mutation caused his height to reach an astonishing 5 meters. He pounced forward like a mountain. The black fur on his body flickered with a black, gem-like luster, and his pair of bloodthirsty bear eyes emitted a ferocious glow. Guan Ping didn't have much battle experience, but his theoretical knowledge was extremely exquisite. Ever since he found out that he was a dog Zodiac warrior, he had been the one to train the most diligently during the trip to Tibet. He was someone who usually didn't like to show off, but when it came to training, he could endure more hardships than others. Among the Zodiac guardian god warriors who had already appeared, other than the 2 leaders of the Sacred Flame sect who had just received the news, he was the oldest. As a doctor, he had always been eager to excel, and he definitely didn't want to be weaker than others. Therefore, he had been diligently training his Thundercloud force and skills every day, and today was the time for him to show off his skills. His 2.5 meters tall body against a 5 meters tall body was clearly disproportionate, but Guan Ping did not hesitate to meet him head-on. Although he was a dog Zodiac warrior, he was also a lion mastiff and had the king's aura of a lion. In the face of an enemy, he would never back down. The huge golden fist met with the bear paw that was several times larger. With a loud bang, Bear King Boris was surprised to find that his enemy had not been sent flying by this slap. Under the bombardment of Guan Ping that was like a mountain, his charging body had no choice but to stop for a moment. The sharp and thick golden claws left a mark on Boris's strong chest muscles at lightning speed. Chapter 78. Klinsmann looked coldly at everything that was happening in front of him. He realized that the white-scaled figure in front of him, who was obviously a woman, did not move either. From behind the white mask of light, her ruby-like eyes were fixed on him. The feeling of being locked on was uncomfortable, and every part of his body was exposed to the other party's aura. Would Klinsmann be afraid? The answer was no. As the leader of the Dark Council in Yin Huang this time, be it Bear King Baslu or Wolf King Garnet, they were far weaker than him in terms of strength. Even in the entire Dark Council, other than the chairman of the Dark Council, no one could match him. His youthful and handsome face hid thousands of years of cultivation. As one of the oldest vampires, his strength was obvious to all in the vampire world. He was also the only one who had hope of reaching the pinnacle of the vampire world and becoming a blood emperor. Feeling Hai Ryue's gaze, Klinsmann suddenly revealed a strange smile. He raised his hand and patted the dark red coffin beside him. A strong layer of red light enveloped the coffin, and then his body suddenly disappeared. Yes, completely disappeared. Hai Ryue, who had been locking onto Klinsmann with her aura, suddenly realized that Klinsmann had disappeared. Her whole body was instantly affected by the feeling of missing her aura. At this moment, the handsome young man appeared out of thin air beside her, and the dark red light seemed to press down on her body from all directions. Hai Ryue had the most battle experience out of all the Zodiac Guardian warriors. Facing the sudden attack, she was surprised but not panicked. She turned her body on the spot. Her dragon claws extended outwards, and a circle of white light with a strong dragon aura surged towards her opponent. There was no sound, and the 2 colors of light disappeared at the same time. Hai Ryue's body trembled slightly, but Klinsmann's body disappeared again. The air around her seemed to have turned black, and the terrifying and strange feeling caused the surrounding temperature to drop rapidly. Hai Ryue did not dare to be careless, and immediately and cautiously put herself in a defensive state. Facing an opponent with the ability to teleport, this was the only thing she could do. He retracted his dragon claws in front of his chest and covered his entire body with dragon power. His mind power was spread out, ready to attack Klinsmann at any time. While they were fighting against the 3 kings of darkness, Chiyu wasn't idle either. When the Wolf King's attack collided with Modi's leg strength, Chiyu had already made his move. In terms of strength, the 3 great monarchs of the Covenant of Darkness were clearly much more tyrannical. However, Chiyu's side had to deal with 7 or 8 times the number of people. The 5 vampire Grand Dukes were definitely comparable to a vampire prince, not to mention the other vampires, demon werewolves, and berserk bearmen who were assisting them. Chiyu dashed out the moment his transformation was completed. His mind was very clear. He knew that these dark creatures had developed a very deep tacit understanding after many years of fighting. Therefore, he could not let them unleash their full strength. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to deal with them. Therefore, Chiyu dashed out immediately. He didn't attack the berserk bearmen. These big guys looked like they had strong defense, and he couldn't let them hold him back. Chiyu's target was the sky. From the moment he saw these dark creatures, he knew that the biggest threat came from the high-level vampires. Kirin, Shadow Step. With Kirin's cooperation, Chiyu's body instantly became illusory. Almost at the same time, he split into 4 figures and pounced on the 4 vampire Viscounts who were clearly weaker. None of the figures used their 4 attributes of thundercloud force. Instead, they used their shining black and silver fists. The 5 vampire Grand Dukes obviously wouldn't let their subordinates take Chiyu's attack. The dark red light expanded at the same time and swept towards Chiyu's body. At the same time, they pounced at almost the speed of sound. When they pounced, the 5 vampire Grand Dukes surrounded Chiyu with great tacit understanding. However, would Chiyu let them succeed? Of course not. When he transformed into 4 figures, he had already silently activated the thundercloud force in his body. When the 5 vampire Grand Dukes approached his body, Chiyu immediately released his thundercloud force. A strong red light instantly erupted with his body as the center. It was Kirin's inferno. The red light instantly filled the air. The 5 vampire Grand Dukes exclaimed at the same time. In the face of the pure Kirin's true fire, their devouring spell was useless. When the dark red light encountered the righteous Kirin's true fire, it immediately melted like ice and snow. The flames rolled back and instantly covered an area of hundreds of square meters in the air. However, these vampire Grand Dukes had lived for hundreds of years. When they suddenly realized that something was wrong, they reacted immediately. With their superhuman speed, their bodies emitted strong, dark energy and forcibly blocked the engulfment of Kirin's true fire. They escaped the attack range with lightning speed. The 4 vampire Viscounts were not so lucky. Although their dark ability was not weak, unfortunately, they were facing the king of the Zodiac, Kirin. After opening all 8 meridians, Chiyu's strength had obviously increased to another level. Although the attack brought by Kirin's arm was slightly weaker because it was divided into 4 parts, it was still not something these mid-level dark creatures could resist. The tyrannical Kirin's arm directly broke through their dark energy. In the midst of 4 screams, the 4 vampire Viscounts simultaneously spat out blood and retreated in all directions. However, Chiyu would not give them a chance. At this time, Chiyu did not hesitate to use thundercloud force to push his combat power to the peak state. For silver lights flashed and disappeared. The bodies of the 4 vampire Viscounts that were originally escaping in the air stopped, and the evil light in their eyes suddenly dimmed. They all covered their left chests because there was a silver needle that had just been pierced there, and not even the end of the needle was left. With just a slight delay, these already heavily injured vampire Viscounts had to face the monstrous flames. In an instant, Kirin's true fire covered their bodies and completely turned them into flying ashes. Perhaps Kirin's true fire could not burn vampires of this level in one go. However, when their hearts were pierced by the silver needles and their protective energy was broken by Kirin's arm, how could they withstand such a tyrannical attack? Chi made full use of his various abilities and took care of the 4 vampire Viscounts in one go. But Ming Ming and Su Dong below were in a dangerous and bitter battle. The werewolves were extremely fast. As soon as Chiyu fought with the vampires above, they flashed out from behind the raging bearmen and launched a fierce attack on Ming Ming and Su Dong. Su Dong could fly, but when Chiyu attacked, he had to take care of Ming Ming. In order to cooperate with Ming Ming, he had no choice but to give up his ability to fly. Five Cloud's full strength was displayed. Su Dong roared and waved his tiger claws, sending the few werewolves that were attacking him flying. With a tiger's roar, he immediately launched a counterattack. However, the werewolves and the bearmen's coordination was too good. When the werewolves attacked, the raging bearmen had already surrounded them. With their 4-meter height, the area they covered was too wide. When Su Dong counterattacked, he immediately met the raging bearmen's bodies. What did it mean to have a body that even armor-piercing bullets couldn't hurt? He would only know after a real attack. Although Su Dong pushed back 2 raging bearmen, he was immediately shocked by the opponent's strong defense. If there were only a few bearmen, he could still use his stronger skills. No matter how strong the defense of these raging bearmen was, he was confident that he could kill them. However, there were 8 raging bearmen in front of him. There was also a large number of werewolves attacking, so he didn't have time to use stronger skills. He could only take advantage of the raging bearmen's slow speed to fight the werewolves. He couldn't hurt them at all. He couldn't even stop for a moment. What comforted Su Dong was Ming Ming. When they met these people's attacks, the strength that Ming Ming displayed made Su Dong have a whole new level of respect for her. Although Ming Ming couldn't fly, her body was constantly moving. Her speed didn't seem fast, but no matter how the werewolves attacked, they couldn't touch her body. Meanwhile, Ming Ming's arms stretched out to the sides of her body, flickering with a rainbow light. Almost every time she waved her arms, she would leave a mark on a werewolf. On the surface, it seemed that Ming Ming and Su Dong were relying on their strength to block a large number of the Dark Parliament's elites, and they could even cause some damage to them. However, they knew that the Dark Parliament's creatures were too tyrannical. Whether it was attack or defense, they were much stronger than they had imagined, especially the raging bearmen. As long as they didn't attack with all their strength, they couldn't hurt them at all. At this time, they didn't have the time to attack with all their strength, and their bodies couldn't stop moving. They didn't dare to receive the raging bearmen's attacks. Only the heavens knew how strong these 4-meter-tall fellows were. If they received their attacks and stopped moving, they would be surrounded by the werewolves, and the situation wouldn't be as good as it was now. Thus, they could only delay the battle and do their best to cause as much damage as possible to the werewolves. On the surface, it looked like they were blocking the raging bearmen, but it also consumed a lot of their thundercloud force. Even they didn't know how long they could last. However, at this time, the Sacred Flame Sect's members who had retreated started to help them. Hu Guang and Ian were a snake and a monkey respectively. Both of them were sly by nature. What they did was very simple. They called over 30 of their most accurate marksmen from their 200 subordinates and hid at the side to shoot from the shadows. Aren't vampires invincible? All right, we won't attack vampires then. The few big bats are already occupied by Chi Yu and can't use the engulfing skill to block the bullets. We definitely can't let go of such a good opportunity. Under the command of these 2 wretched fellows, the 30 sharpshooters specifically targeted the werewolves and the raging bearmen's eyes. Even the raging bearmen wouldn't dare to let their eyes get hit by armor-piercing bullets, let alone the werewolves. Luckily, the werewolves were fast enough and managed to avoid the bullets as much as possible. However, the damage they received was also increasing. However, these fellows from the Covenant of Darkness weren't stupid. Once they realized that the situation wasn't right, they immediately sent out 2 raging bearmen and 4 werewolves to charge towards the Sacred Flame Sect. Although these sharpshooters couldn't deal a fatal blow to them, they were too annoying. From the start of the sneak attack with the rocket projectiles, these people from the Covenant of Darkness hated them. Ming Ming and Su Dong were already occupied and couldn't escape. Meanwhile, Chi Yu was also in a tough battle. Chi Yu had relied on his keen senses and ingenious use of his abilities to kill 4 of the weaker vampires, but at the same time, it had consumed a lot of his energy. When his Inferno Purgatory disappeared, he was immediately surrounded by 5 Grand Duke vampires. The Grand Duke vampires didn't know how to teleport. That was an ability only princes had. However, their speed gave Chi Yu a headache. Moreover, each of the 5 Grand Duke vampires was the top in the Covenant of Darkness. They were much more terrifying than the raging bearmen below them. Their cooperation was very ingenious. 3 out of the 5 Grand Duke vampires held Chi Yu back and attacked him with lightning-fast speed. Meanwhile, The other two were a little further away, constantly releasing dark abilities to support their companions' attacks. Although most of their dark abilities weren't offensive, they covered a wide area, making it impossible for Chi-Yu to dodge. Weakening abilities and slowing abilities were continuously applied to Chi-Yu. As for the three Grand Duke vampires who were attacking Chi-Yu, they added Bloodthirst, Berserker, and other supporting combat abilities. For a moment, although Chi-Yu's 4-attribute Thundercloud Force was strong, he was completely occupied by the 5 Grand Duke vampires. He could only rely on his strong defense and the endless attacks of the 4-attribute Thundercloud Force to fight against them. As he fought, Chi-Yu cursed Paladin Lu Yuan in his heart. Although he had already guessed that the information given to him was fake, Chi-Yu didn't expect it to be this fake. These people from the Covenant of Darkness were too strong. If it wasn't for the support of the Sacred Flame Sect's firepower, he might not just be at a disadvantage. He couldn't deal with the 5 old vampires in front of him, and it was impossible for Ming Ming and Su Dong to kill the tyrannical dark creatures below. On the other side, Ryue was leading Modi and Guan Ping to fight against the 3 powerful dark mutants, but they were actually at a disadvantage. This was the first time Chi-Yu saw Ryue at a disadvantage in a one-on-one battle. It was obvious how strong the Covenant of Darkness was this time. There were too many things hidden in the information given to him by Lu Yuan. Could it be that these huge werewolves and werbears with extremely strong defense and attack were also vampires? Although he was furious, Chi-Yu didn't dare to stop. He carefully dealt with the attacks of his opponents, using the noble spirit of Kirin's Thundercloud Force to resist the various negative abilities that wreaked havoc on his body. At the same time, he tried his best to conserve his Thundercloud Force and observe the battlefield. This way, he would be able to react when necessary. At this time, Hai Ryue was already in a difficult battle. It was her first time fighting a vampire, and the vampire in front of her was a prince. Klinsmann's attacks were extremely sharp. With the ability of teleportation, he forced Ryue to use area attacks again and again. It was undoubtedly unwise to compete with a prince vampire in terms of speed. Therefore, Ryue kept floating in the air, waiting for her opponent to attack her so that she could seize his flaws. However, Klinsmann didn't give her the slightest chance to seize his flaws. Every attack was accompanied by a stream of dark energy that attacked Ryue's body. The seemingly ordinary energy was extremely condensed. Even if Ryue was confident in her defense after the mutation, she didn't dare to let him hit her easily. She could feel that the guy in front of her was not using his full strength. In fact, Klinsmann was more surprised than Ryue. He didn't expect the woman in front of him to be so difficult to deal with. Not only was the dragon power that Ryue released extremely powerful, but it was also filled with a deterrent energy that posed a great threat to him. However, Klinsmann was able to reach his current level not because of how talented he was, but because he was cautious enough in any situation. Facing Hai Ryue, although he felt that she was weaker than him, he didn't have the slightest confidence that he could kill Ryue without getting seriously injured at the same time. Therefore, he didn't use his strongest attack, because if he mobilized a large amount of dark energy, he would definitely be unable to use teleportation for the time being. Looking at the overall situation, it was obvious that the Covenant of Darkness had a huge advantage. In that case, why take the risk? It would be better for him to use a small amount of his energy in exchange for a large amount of his opponent's energy. When the time was right, he would then unleash a powerful attack. Klinsmann's craftiness brought a lot of trouble to Hai Ryue's trio. Modi's spring kick was unleashed to its fullest, and her body was almost a blur. She constantly lashed out with one leg after image after another, and white light continuously attacked Garnet. No matter how fast Garnet was, he couldn't compare to Modi's leg speed. Under Modi's attacks, Garnet could only deal with them head-on most of the time. However, in terms of the frequency of his attacks, he was clearly lower than Modi, and Modi's extremely fast attacks also restricted his abilities. If it wasn't because of Klinsmann's harassment of Modi, the two of them might only be evenly matched. However, the problem of energy depletion also appeared on Modi. Continuously unleashing spring kick attacks and relying on the frequency of her attacks to deal with Garnet drained a lot of her energy. Thankfully, she had been practicing leg techniques since young and had a very solid foundation. It was definitely not an easy task for Garnet to defeat her. Two silhouettes, one white and one silver, kept on flashing and chasing each other in the air. Their energy continued to bring out piercing sounds as they tore through the air. While they were fighting, the two ferocious bear men and four demonic werewolves had split off and were rapidly closing in on the Sacred Flame Sect's members who were shooting from the back. With the help of the two tall and big ferocious bear men blocking the bullets, they finally arrived at a place not far away from the Sacred Flame Sect's members. Their ferocious gazes kept flickering. These assassins from the Covenant of Darkness seemed to have already seen these ordinary humans turning into pieces of flesh and blood under their attacks. However, at this moment, two silhouettes came out from behind the gunman's cover. The sharpshooters who were shooting from the back quickly dispersed to the sides, continuing to use their firepower to support Ming Ming and Su Dong. The two ferocious bear men stopped at the same time. Although they were in a berserk state, they couldn't help but be stunned when they saw these two fellows who weren't even as tall as their legs. The two short Yin Huang people in front of them were both wearing a pair of slippers. This was especially so for the fellow on the left with glasses as thick as the bottom of a bottle. The size of his slippers was obviously bigger. So what if you're big? Hu Guang rolled his eyes. Regardless of whether it was the 4-meter-tall ferocious bearman or the 5-meter-tall demonic werewolf, they were all much taller than him and Ian. However, the expression on his face was still as wretched as ever. Smoke came out of his mouth, and he said with disdain, "This is our territory. It's not the place for wild beasts like you to show off. Why don't you go to the entertainment venues in the capital and ask around? Which one of them doesn't recognize my big slippers?" Ian said unhappily, F***CK. Don't you know how to say anything else? You only know how to say this. F***CK, be careful. The bear men and demonic werewolves couldn't understand what Hu Guang was saying at all. However, they knew how to kill. Hu Guang and Ian were really too short. They were only about 6 meters tall. It was difficult for the ferocious bearman to even slap them with his bare paws. He might as well lift his huge feet and kick at them. The 4 demonic werewolves split from the ferocious bearman's back and rushed towards the two in the middle. In their minds, they could turn the 2 short Yin Huang people in front of them into minced meat with just a single step. Unfortunately, they weren't facing ordinary people. Although Hu Guang and Ian hadn't really cultivated the abilities of the Zodiac Guardian God warriors, they were innate awakened and could already use a portion of their abilities. The energy in their bodies had already developed to a certain level over the 30 years of their lives. The 4 demonic werewolves had just rushed up when Ian's body jumped. Could a monkey jump as high as a rabbit? In actual animals, of course, they could. However, Ian didn't have the insane jumping ability of Modi, but he could still easily jump a few meters. In terms of agility, the Zodiac monkey was definitely the strongest among the Zodiac Guardian God warriors. Hence, in a flash, he was already on the chest of a ferocious bearman. With a push of his feet, he was on top of the ferocious bearman's head. Hu Guang didn't dodge, but his eyes turned lascivious. The 4 demonic werewolves passed by, their powerful claws accurately grabbing onto Hu Guang's body. Unfortunately, Hu Guang didn't turn into minced meat as they had expected. Pieces of cloth flew in all directions. The coat on Hu Guang's body had already turned into rags, but the demonic werewolves were shocked to find that when their attacks landed on this kid's body, not even a mark was left on his body. The most ridiculous thing was that the cigarette that was originally in Hu Guang's mouth was now stuck in the nostrils of a demonic werewolf. No matter how strong his body was, his nostrils couldn't defend him. The demonic werewolf roared angrily. As he flung the cigarette butt away, smoke came out of his nostrils. Hu Guang crossed his arms in front of his chest and cursed, F***CK. You won't even let my ribs go. I'll fight it out with you. Under his lascivious gaze, his body swayed and his slender waist slightly twisted. He directly bypassed the attack of a demonic werewolf and stuck to it, as if his body didn't have any bones. Hu Guang's attack power wasn't strong because he still couldn't display his full strength. However, there was one thing that the other Zodiac Guardian warriors didn't have, and that was poison. A scream came out of the demonic werewolf's mouth. Hu Guang circled around his body and ran to the side. The other 3 demonic werewolves pounced on him like lightning. However, although their attacks fell on Hu Guang's body, they couldn't cause any harm to him. The Zodiac Snake Warrior's character was to look for opportunities to kill in one strike. One of his 2 main abilities was poison, and the other was to use his soft body to dissolve all physical attacks and some energy attacks. Therefore, the demonic werewolf's attacks were ineffective against him. The previous demonic werewolf that was circled around by Hu Guang was actually only touched by Hu Guang's right hand. However, that simple touch had already caused circles of black marks to appear on the demonic werewolf's body. The marks were gradually enlarging, and the strong corrosion brought an unpleasant smell. Hu Guang's poison was not only highly toxic, but it also contained the ability of neurotoxin. Once poisoned, the intense pain was unbearable even for a man of steel. He would immediately lose his ability to fight and die in the face of the strong corrosion. Hu Guang had tried this method of attack 100 times, and this time he succeeded. While Hu Guang's side achieved a good result, Ian didn't stay idle. He jumped on the head of the huge berserk bearman, and the first thing he did was to fart on the bearman's face. With a puff, Ian's body had already jumped up and pounced towards another berserk bearman. His mouth was still laughing strangely, so stinky, so stinky. The berserk bearman's huge bare paw roared as it slapped towards Ian, and the bearman that Ian was pouncing towards did the same thing. The 2 huge bare paws, one in front and one behind, almost blocked all of Ian's movements. However, the Zodiac monkey had the monkey effect ability. No matter what kind of attack, in theory, it was impossible to attack at the same time. Ian's keen judgment grasped the opportunity in front of him, and his body pounced forward to meet the bare paw head-on. Just as he was about to be smashed to pieces, his body suddenly flipped in an inconceivable manner, and he forcibly moved half a foot to the side. His right foot tapped on the bearman's paw, and he rubbed against it at an angle, causing the bearman's paw to hit empty air. At this time, the berserk bearman was completely enraged by Ian's fart. When the huge bare paw slapped down with all its might, Ian's body disappeared, and in front of him was the bearman that had just slapped empty air. There was a loud bang. The berserk bearman also had an extremely strong defense, but under the palm of its comrade. The poor unlucky fellow was instantly smashed to the ground, and blood spurted out of his mouth and nose. However, its body was indeed strong enough. Although the full force of its comrade's slap had stunned it, it was not enough to make it lose its ability to fight. The biggest weakness of a berserk bearman was that it was not clear-headed enough. After being attacked, its mind was almost completely blank. The bearman that was smashed to the ground almost without hesitation, and its huge bare paw slapped towards its comrade. Bang, 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 bang. The 2 enraged bearmen madly attacked their comrade. At this time, having lost their minds, they became even more terrifying. Within a radius of 20 meters, strong winds blew against their faces, and they were unable to get close at all. Ian chuckled and landed on the ground. He did not stop and directly leaped towards Ming Ming and Su Dong. Hu Guang's battle was also over. In fact, he did not use any big moves, nor did he use much energy. He only touched the other 3 demon werewolves while they were attacking him. When he put on his big slippers and followed behind, into the battlefield, the 4 demon werewolves had already fallen to the ground and were wailing in pain. Hu Guang and Ian easily dealt with their opponents, but it did not mean that they were stronger than Ming Ming and Su Dong. First of all, the number of enemies they faced was much less than Ming Ming and Su Dong. In addition, the demon werewolves and berserk bearmen underestimated them, so they were caught unprepared. Secondly, whether it was snakes or monkeys, they were known for their dexterity. When it came to the 2 of them, they were more wretched and lascivious. Therefore, they were able to restrain the huge and frightening attacks of the berserk bearmen and demon werewolves. Coupled with a bit of luck, they were able to achieve their current results. After the two berserk bear men and 4 demon werewolves were separated, the pressure on Ming Ming and Su Dong's side was greatly reduced. The two of them gradually displayed their attacks. Ming Ming's iron wings tyrannically caused continuous damage to the demon werewolves, while Su Dong was no longer stingy with his energy. Every punch brought about some results, and even some of the weaker parts of the berserk bear men were hit many times. For the first time, the situation gradually developed from a disadvantage to an advantage. Chapter 79. The Fire Thundercloud Force was released instantly, forcing the 5 Vampire Grand Dukes to retreat. Chi Yu had a bad feeling. After the Vampire Prince Klinsman and the others strengthened their attacks, Ru Yue and the other 2 were obviously unable to resist. Even if Su Dong and the others could take advantage of the situation, once Ru Yue and the others could not resist, it would be troublesome. Chi Yu knew that it was time for the final battle. With a long roar, the thundercloud force in his body increased greatly. Kirin Pearl on Xiong Qian instantly lit up, and Kirin behind him emitted a layer of dark red light. Under the effect of the thundercloud force, Chi Yu's body rushed out instantly. The 5 Vampire Grand Dukes naturally did not want him to rush out of the encirclement. Without hesitation, they surrounded Chi Yu. 5 black and red halos shone out of thin air towards him. At this moment, Chi Yu saw their white fangs. The energy fluctuations told Chi Yu that these inconspicuous halos were definitely not easy to resist, but he still did not use the thundercloud force to block these attacks. Chi Yu took advantage of the 5 Grand Duke vampires to launch an attack. Just as the old energy was about to dissipate, he shouted, "Qilin 100 lightning strikes." A purple light lit up in the air. In the rumbling roar, the area of hundreds of square meters was completely covered in purple lightning. Chi Yu had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. 100 lightning strikes was released with full force, and the 4-cloud level thundercloud force instantly erupted. Under his control, huge lightning as thick as an arm directly enveloped the 5 Vampire Grand Dukes. Although vampires had the ability to dodge with ultrasonic waves, they could not do anything in the face of the lightning attack, which had its own attraction. In this emergency, the 5 Vampire Grand Dukes could only hold up a ball of black light to resist the bombardment of lightning. Lightning was the accumulation of awe-inspiring righteousness. How could it be so easy to resist? In a violent roar, the 5 Vampire Grand Dukes screamed almost at the same time. Their meticulously combed blonde hair stood up at the same time, and most of their bodies were charred black. However, their strength was indeed tyrannical. Even under such a situation, they were still able to flap the bat wings on their backs and quickly escape in 5 different directions. They had seen the previous vampire viscounts die very clearly, so they were naturally wary of Chi Yu's consecutive attacks. However, even if Chi Yu wanted to chase after them, he could not. Although the 100 lightning strikes had successfully injured the 5 Vampire Grand Dukes, the 5 black and red halos they released also covered Chi Yu. It was the energy of tearing and corroding. The 5 combined into one, causing Chi Yu's body to shake violently. The black and silver light of the protective Kirin armor shone brightly, and he could not help but cry out in pain. Kirin Red. Flames burst, and the extremely strong defense of Kirin Red finally appeared. At this time, Chi Yu had no choice but to use his full strength. With the strong defense of Kirin Red and the help of the Fire Thundercloud Force, he was barely able to transform the energy of the 5 halos. Even so, Chi Yu could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. If Chi Yu went after the Vampire Grand Dukes at this time, he could at least kill one of the paralyzed vampires. The energy of the 100 lightning strikes not only greatly weakened the abilities of these vampires, but also temporarily made them lose the ability to attack. The paralysis caused them to flap their wings in front of them to escape. However, Chi Yu did not chase after any of the Vampire Grand Dukes. He lowered his body and directly rushed to the ground. With the full power of the Thundercloud Force, he almost arrived on the ground in a flash. He landed right next to Vampire Prince Klinsman's dark red coffin. All of you stop. Otherwise, I will destroy this coffin first. Chi Yu roared, and directly punched the head of the coffin with his right fist. He looked coldly at the three Dark Kings. He naturally had his reasons for doing so. Previously, Chi had been fighting with the 5 vampire Grand Dukes while observing everything in the field. The one that caught his attention the most was naturally Vampire Prince Klinsman, who was completely at a disadvantage against Ryue. Chi noticed that while Klinsman was attacking Ryue, his eyes would often glance at the dark red coffin. Although it was just a quick glance, this frequent action naturally caught Chiyu's attention. He secretly thought that this coffin must be very important to that powerful vampire. Therefore, when Klinsman and the other Dark Kings suddenly attacked with all their might, Chiyu chose to force the Vampire Grand Duke to retreat and control the item that Klinsman valued so much. Chiyu did not want to compromise with these people from the Covenant of Darkness. At this time, he clearly understood the situation on the field. Whether it was himself or his companions, the Thundercloud force had been greatly depleted. However, in terms of manpower, the Covenant of Darkness had suffered more. Delaying time to let his people recover as much as possible was naturally beneficial to them. No matter how he looked at it, he had to first occupy this coffin. When Klinsman saw Chiyu's fist pointing at the dark red coffin, his expression changed drastically. He did not expect the Yin Huang people in front of him to be so cunning as to use the coffin to threaten him. However, this threat was definitely effective against him. With a flash, Klinsman's attack on Ryue suddenly disappeared. At this moment, he fully displayed his strength. In just a moment, he had already grabbed the 5-meter-tall Bear King Baris with one hand and the Wolf King Garnet with the other. After the mutation, the weight of these two people was definitely more than a ton. However, he was able to grab them and fly. Just this strength alone was enough to shock the entire field. With an angry roar, Bear King Baris roared, "Klinsman, what are you doing?" Klinsman said coldly, "Stop for a moment." He let out a long, sharp howl. On the other side, the demonic werewolves, raging bear men, and the vampire Grand Dukes who could fly immediately gathered towards them. With the help of the 5 vampire Grand Dukes and the dark ability, they temporarily suppressed the spread of the corrosion on the demonic werewolves. The 2 unlucky raging bear men were also pulled away by the other raging bear men. Su Dong and the rest did not give chase. Instead, they quickly gathered beside Chiyu. Hu Guang and Ian were all panting heavily. The thundercloud force on them fluctuated constantly. Chiyu's right fist continuously flickered with black and silver light. Klinsman was very clear that although the coffin was protected by the energy he had left behind, it would not be able to withstand Chiyu's fist that was filled with tyrannical energy. Kirin's aura emanated from Chiyu's body and enveloped all the Zodiac Guardian warriors. Under the effect of Kirin's aura, everyone naturally understood what he meant. They absorbed the energy molecules in the air to restore their thundercloud force. Klinsman put the Bear King and the Wolf King on the ground. Without looking at them, he took a few steps forward and stood facing Chiyu, 30 meters away. Bear King Baris had wanted to say something, but when he saw his 2 subordinates, the raging bear men, beating each other up, he could not help but become furious. With a single kick, he sent the 2 4-meter-tall berserk bear men flying. In fact, he was running away. At this time, the aura emanating from Klinsman's body was so strong that even he and the Wolf King Garnet would feel fear. They all knew in their hearts. When this old vampire was really angry, even the Dark House speaker had to give him some leeway. The corner of Chiyu's mouth revealed the trace of a lazy smile. "I don't know if you understand Yin Huang's language, but I can tell you that even if you can teleport, I can still destroy this coffin when you attack me." Klinsman snorted coldly. Yin Huang language is the language of 1/5 of the world's humans. As a noble vampire prince, how can I not know it? Kid, I know you can do it, but I advise you not to do it. Otherwise, I will make you regret it. His skin was already very pale. At this time, he clenched his fist so tightly that the skin on his hands looked a little scary. Chiyu smiled. "Do you think I'll be threatened by you?" At this point, his expression suddenly turned cold. "No matter what purpose you have in coming to the Yin Huang Republic, you should not harm the people of Yin Huang. You evil vampires dare to spread BD in the bodies of ordinary people. Don't you know what the consequences are? As the protectors of the Yin Huang land, there's only hatred between us now. I'm not a person who likes to kill. Give me the antidote for bloodline BD, and I'll return this broken coffin to you. Otherwise, I'll destroy this coffin first, and then fight to the death with you. In terms of overall strength, the Zodiac Guardian warriors were clearly weaker than the other party. However, as the successor of the mythical Beast King Kirin, Chiyu had the ability of the ultimate Kirin arm. Therefore, in terms of aura, he was not the least bit weaker than his opponent. Although he did not want to use the ultimate Kirin arm, he would definitely not be stingy if he was forced to use it. Klinsmann's dark red eyes narrowed. Yin Huang, are you trying to negotiate with me? Even if I give you the antidote, so what? Do you think you can leave here alive today? Chiyu laughed coldly and said, Your Excellency Vampire Prince, I should be the one saying that to you. The black and silver light on his right arm suddenly became stronger, and a powerful aura filled the entire area. Even the Zodiac Guardian warriors behind Chiyu felt a sense of submission. A huge black and silver Kirin shadow appeared behind Chiyu out of thin air. Light flashed, and Chiyu's aura suddenly increased. Faced with the sudden appearance of such a powerful aura, the three kings of the Covenant of Darkness were shocked. The feeling of destruction forced them to take a step back. Wolf King Garnet's eyes were fixed on Chiyu's right arm. Chiyu said coldly, The antidote. I can let you off today because I don't have a good impression of the Vatican. However, I have two conditions. First, hand over the antidote. Second, do not spread the bloodline Genie BD in the Yin Huang Republic. Otherwise, I will destroy you here even if I have to use part of my life force. Chiyu deliberately said that he would use part of his life force, which was his smartest move. He said this to tell the three kings of the Covenant of Darkness that he definitely had the strength to do so. His aura completely reflected this. This was not the first time Chiyu used the energy of the ultimate Kirin arm. Last time, he used it at Tianxiang Mountain, Gui Jianshou. In the end, he scared off the four major families and made them submit to the Zodiac Guardian. This time, his goal was to scare the elites of the Covenant of Darkness in front of him. The difference was that Chiyu really wanted to use the ultimate Kirin arm to avenge Ming Ming. This time, however, it was a complete threat. After all, the Covenant of Darkness was from the west. It was impossible for them to know that his ultimate Kirin arm could only be used once. Even Ink Kirin needed 100 years to recover. What he wanted was his aura. Even this aura would consume a lot of his Yuan Qi, and it would take some time to recover. Chiyu was very clear that in the current situation, it was impossible for his side to defeat the Covenant of Darkness. Even if they were lucky and killed these people, they would suffer losses. The only ones who would benefit would be the Vatican, the Greek Guardian, and even the Sun Nation's Spirit Devourer Hall. When he released the aura of the ultimate Kirin arm, his heart was once again filled with the desire for strength. If he had enough strength, why would he need to threaten them? Klinsmann's aura was a little unstable. Standing in front of all the members of the Covenant of Darkness, he no longer concealed his aura. If he had only been facing Chiyu's aura, perhaps he would have taken a risk. However, when his gaze landed on the dark red coffin, he hesitated. Before yesterday, if he had been in such a situation, he might have temporarily retreated, but he definitely would not have negotiated any conditions with Chiyu. However, in the short span of a day, the dark red coffin had become even more precious to him than the Covenant of Darkness objective in coming to Yin Huang. F***CK. Who do you think you are, kid? Bear King Basru's Yin Huang language was clearly much worse than Klinsmann's. The stiff words that came out of his mouth caused the air to tremble. Scram. This was not Chiyu's words, but Klinsmann's. Basru was stunned for a moment, and his eyes were filled with anger. The 6 raging bear men, who were only slightly injured, stepped forward at the same time, and the ground shook violently. Klinsmann's back was facing the bear men. As if he had not noticed anything, his cold voice rang out again. I don't want to say it again. At this moment, the wings on his back turned gold. The bright red veins on the golden wings looked very strange. Basra gasped. After all, he was not a fool. From the golden wings, he had already understood something. Without another word, he raised his hand and stopped his subordinates from stepping forward. Klinsmann stared fixedly at Chi Yu's eyes. His gaze swept across Chi Yu's right arm, which was constantly expanding in black and silver light. He nodded lightly and said, "All right, kid, you win this time. Hand over the coffin and let's go." Chi Yu looked deeply at Klinsmann and said, "This is my condition." He was now even more certain that the coffin in front of him was important to Klinsmann. Klinsmann took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He had suffered a great loss today. He did not care about the deaths of the Bearmen and Werewolves, but he had lost 10 Viscounts and 5 Grand Dukes. This was the first time he had suffered such a loss since becoming a vampire prince. "I agree to your condition. The next time we meet, I will use your blood to wash away my humiliation." He slowly raised his right hand, and a blood-red light condensed in his palm. The light flickered several times, and the blood-red light condensed into a thumb-sized ball of blood. Klinsmann snorted coldly. A glass bottle appeared in his other hand, and the ball of blood floated into the bottle. He sealed it with a cork and threw it to Chi Yu. "Turn the primordial blood into water. Give it to those who have been infected with BD to drink. They will naturally return to normal." Chi Yu gripped the glass bottle and sneered. "Why should I believe that this is real?" Klinsmann's expression immediately turned ugly. "The noble blood clan never lies. Do you think I am an ordinary vampire? I'll remember the insult you gave me. Brother Chi Yu, take it. He is right. Vampire princes don't lie." A familiar voice sounded. Lu Yuan, dressed in a neat suit, appeared. Beside him were 3 men in the same attire, and behind them were 20 calm subordinates who exuded a powerful aura. Klinsmann's expression changed slightly. "For of the 12 holy knights of the Vatican are here, and there are 20 advanced knights of light." Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Your Highness Prince Klinsmann, we meet again. However, you seem to have encountered some trouble this time. Mr. Chi, I'm sorry I'm late." Chi Yu snorted coldly. "You are like the police in the movies, always the last to arrive." Lu Yuan said, "No, it is not over yet. If Mr. Chi is willing, we can cooperate. The Vatican has always valued our friends from the East." Klinsmann said proudly, "Do you think you can keep us here?" "Lu Yuan, you're underestimating this king." Lu Yuan was still smiling. "Of course, we cannot keep you here. After all, you are a vampire prince. However, your subordinates, as well as the werewolves and bearmen, will not be able to leave. Oh, His Excellency Bear King Baslu and His Excellency Wolf King Garnet are both here. Brother Chi, you see." Chi Yu suddenly laughed. "Our Yan Huang people are trustworthy. Since your Highness Klinsmann has already agreed to my terms, I have no reason to use force. After all, they do not belong to the East. Your Highness Klinsmann, keep your subordinates in check. If you want to take revenge on me, I welcome you at any time." As he spoke, Chi Yu raised his right foot and sent the dark red coffin flying in Klinsmann's direction. Lu Yuan had not expected Chi Yu to do this. He was stunned for a moment, but he immediately roared and rushed out. The other 3 paladins beside him followed suit and pounced at the coffin like lightning. The anger in Klinsmann's heart had already risen to a certain level. Seeing the 4 holy knights behind the dark red coffin, his body suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared between the 4 holy knights and the coffin. A layer of misty golden light flashed like lightning. With a flash of light, the 4 holy knights let out a muffled groan at the same time. The holy light emanating from their bodies instantly dimmed, and they flew backward. Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with shock. You are about to become a blood emperor?" Klinsmann had already returned to his original position. He snorted and said, "When things reach an extreme, they move in the opposite direction. Do you think the few of you are worthy of fighting me?" Just then, Chi Yu's expression changed. Klinsmann had clearly been affected after blocking the attacks of the 4 paladins. His energy was not pure. When Chi Yu caught the coffin, there was a small gap in the coffin cover, allowing Chi Yu to see what was inside. Ching, air. Chi Yu's body shook violently. He had not expected the person in the coffin to be Su Qing, whom he had just met yesterday. "Leave the person in the coffin." Chiyu shouted and pounced at Klinsman. Klinsman snorted coldly and punched at Chiyu. Although Chiyu's right fist was accumulating the power of the ultimate Kirin's arm, he had not intended to use it. Therefore, he had only stored the energy internally. However, the Kirin's arm was Kirin's arm after all. When the two fists met, there was a loud bang and a crack appeared on the ground. Both of them retreated at the same time. Klinsman said in a low voice, "Kid, are you forcing me to kill you now?" Chiyu stared at the dark red coffin in Klinsman's hand. "Leave the person in the coffin, and I will let you go." Klinsman did not get angry. Instead, he said in surprise, "You know her?" Chiyu nodded and said, "Of course. My condition just now was that you cannot infect the Yin Huang people with BD. However, there is another person in your coffin." He now regretted not opening the coffin to take a look. At this time, Su Qing, who was in the coffin, was in Klinsman's hands again. It was easier said than done to get her back. Klinsman shook his head and said gloomily, "No, she is different. I can't hand her over to you. Even if I die, I will protect her and keep her by my side." This time, it was Chiyu's turn to be surprised. "You know her too?" Klinsman said coldly, "Of course, because she is my sister." "No, that's impossible. How can Qing Er be your sister?" Ming Ming said angrily. Klinsman's eyes revealed a hazy light. "Perhaps she was not before yesterday, but she is now. I'm not afraid to tell you that even if you have the ability to keep me here, you can't change the fact that she is my sister. I've already given her the only red Plains golden blood. She has the purest bloodline of the Dracula family. From now on, she is my sister. I will not let anyone hurt her. After giving her the red Plains golden blood, even if I become the strongest blood emperor, I can't change the fact that she is a vampire." Chiyu's eyes flashed with anger. He raised the glass bottle in his hand and said, "Didn't you say that this can cure the blood inheritance BD? Then what do you mean by that?" Klinsman said disdainfully, "It seems like you Yin Huang people know very little about the bloodlings. The Yin Huang people here are only infected with a normal blood inheritance BD. I just let my subordinates infect them. With my primordial blood as a primer, it is very easy to cure the BD. But how can the normal blood inheritance BD compare to my red Plains golden blood? Only a vampire prince can have a drop of red Plains golden blood. No matter who this drop of red Plains golden blood is given to, the person who receives it will have half of my strength. At the very least, he will become a vampire count. Since the day she was given the red Plains golden blood, there is no cure. Unless she dies, she will forever be a vampire. Qinger, I'll kill you." Ming Ming cried out in pain. Her figure flashed, and her petite body floated into the air. She could not fly, but at this moment, she actually stopped about 5 meters in the air. She shouted angrily, "Phoenix dances the rainbow." Her petite body turned violently, her arms carrying the wings that could not fly. Rainbow light shone brightly, and all the colorful feathers on her body lit up. The rainbow-colored light looked so gorgeous that it seemed as if time had stopped at this moment. "Ming Ming!" Chiyu exclaimed. He did not know what Ming Ming was going to do, but he could feel the power of Ming Ming's attack. The 7-colored light and shadow burst out instantly, turning into a 7-colored rainbow in the air and sweeping toward Vampire Prince Klinsman. It turned out to be all the rainbow feathers on Ming Ming's body. With all the feathers out, Ming Ming's body was covered in a layer of rainbow light, and she floated towards the ground. Chiyu rushed forward to catch her. From the energy aura, he could tell that Ming Ming was exhausted. In order not to let others see Ming Ming's delicate body, he quickly entered a Kirin thundercloud force to Ming Ming and kept her in his Kirin pearl. When Klinsman saw the rainbow floating toward him, he couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. He instantly retreated, and a huge golden bat shadow floated out from the wings on his back, blocking Ming Ming's all-out attack. An ear-piercing sound of friction rang out. When the light on the golden bat became almost transparent, it completely blocked Ming Ming's attack. Klinsman's face became even paler. "I've said it before. Everything you do is futile. Brat, perhaps you have the ability to keep me here, but let me tell you this. After absorbing my origin blood of red gold, Without my protection, my little sister's body will be destroyed by the energy and lose her life. Before you do anything, think carefully before you do anything. Let's go." With that, he flapped his wings and flew away. Klinsmann was also a little afraid. Although he seemed to be able to block Ming Ming's all-out attack easily, he was actually very shocked. In addition to the previous battle and the attacks from the four paladins, his body was not in good condition. Therefore, he did not dare to fall out with Qi Yu. Ming Ming was already so powerful. This young man must be even more powerful. The 5 Grand Duke vampires had recovered a little by now, and they hurriedly flew after him. The werewolves and bear men on the ground retreated under the leadership of the Wolf King Garnet and the Bear King Baslu. Qi Yu clenched his right fist, but did not pursue. All the Zodiac Guardian warriors looked at him, waiting for his decision. Qi Yu's eyes lit up, and he shouted, "Klinsmann, listen to me. If you harm a single hair on Qing Air, I will kill you." Klinsmann did not reply, and the people of the Covenant of Darkness retreated just like that. Lu Yuan said anxiously, "Brother Qi, how can you let them go just like that? This is a good opportunity. With your strength and ours, we will definitely be able to injure these dark creatures." Qi Yu looked at him coldly. "We waited here for half an hour before we made our move. Where were you all during this time? I don't need you to teach me how to do things. My friends are still in his hands. Can you guarantee my friend's safety? What I want to know most now is whether the red gold primordial blood that Klinsmann mentioned is true or not." Lu Yuan was slightly stunned. He knew that his subordinates could not deal with the elites of the Covenant of Darkness just now, nor could they compete with the Guardians of the East in front of them. In fact, he had arrived a long time ago, but he had been waiting a few kilometers away, observing everything that was happening here with binoculars. In his calculations, whether the Covenant of Darkness destroyed Qi Yu's people, or Qi Yu led the Zodiac Guardian warriors to kill the Covenant of Darkness, it would be very beneficial to the Vatican. But he did not expect that the final result would be a confrontation between the two sides. After weighing the pros and cons, he appeared with his subordinates. He thought that at least some of the people of the Covenant of Darkness would be killed, but he did not expect that Qi Yu would give up the attack on the Covenant of Darkness. He said a little awkwardly, "Brother Qi, you also know how big the capital of your country is. I am not familiar with the terrain, so I came a little late." Qi Yu waved his hand and said, "You don't have to explain to me. Of course, I respect the Vatican very much. I think the people of the Covenant of Darkness will not leave Yanhuang easily. I know very well what you came to Yanhuang for. We will meet them again in the future. If you're willing to cooperate with us at that time, I can consider it." Lu Yuan's expression changed slightly. "We came to your country to kill these dark creatures. What other purpose do we have?" Chapter 80. This time, Lu Yuan could no longer maintain his composure. His expression changed drastically. "What? The Greeks are here too?" Qi Yu suppressed his worry for Su Qing and tried his best to look calm. He smiled. "That's right. The Greeks are here too. If I'm not wrong, you should know that the Greek goddess of this generation is Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom. This time, even Athena has come to Yanhuang personally. What do you think the Vatican has?" He knew he was right. From Lu Yuan's reaction, they had indeed come to Yanhuang for something. Lu Yuan frowned slightly. Qi Yu could actually see some beads of sweat on Lu Yuan's forehead on such a cold day. "Brother Qi, is what you said true?" Qi Yu snorted coldly. "Why would I lie to you? We, the Eastern Protectors, do not lie easily. Just yesterday, I saw Athena herself. Now, if the Vatican still wants to do something, I'm afraid you won't be able to do it alone. Whether it's the Stygian Council or the Greek Protectors, they have the ability to fight you." Lu Yuan was a smart man. He naturally understood what Qi Yu meant. "Brother Qi, does that mean you're willing to work with us?" Qi Yu said, "Everyone wants that thing. You want it, we want it too. But from the looks of it, including you, there are a total of 5 forces who want it. This includes the Sun Nation. I wonder if Brother Lu Yuan thinks it's better for us to split it or for the 5 forces to fight for it together. 50% or 20%. It should be an easy choice." Lu Yuan nodded. "Brother Qi, you mean that we work together to get rid of the other forces first, and then we can compete fairly for the things we get?" Qi Yu spread his hands. This is very fair, isn't it? You know the specific details of this thing, and we have deep-rooted strength in the Yanwan Republic. We are also more familiar with our motherland. I think if you work with us, you have the highest chance of success. At that time, whether it's the Stygian Council or the Greek protectors, they won't stand a chance. Lu Yuan's eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. Qiyu looked at him and knew that he was still hesitating. He continued, "Of course, it doesn't matter to me if you're not willing. Let's compete fairly. Let's go." As he said that, he waved his hand slightly and led the Zodiac Guardian God warriors out of the factory. The 200 gunmen of the Sacred Flame sect also came out from their hiding places and pointed their guns outwards. They followed behind Qiyu and left. "Wait a minute, Mr. Qi," Lu Yuan shouted. He thought about it briefly. From any perspective, Qiyu's proposal was very reasonable. It was also the most beneficial for them at the moment. In fact, Lu Yuan was not afraid of the competition between the 5 parties. However, he was afraid that Qiyu would cooperate with the Greek Guardians. Since Qiyu could propose to him, if he rejected, they would likely propose to the Greek Guardians. At that time, if the powerful Guardians of the East really cooperated with the Greek Guardians, the Vatican might really have no chance. After all, even he did not know how much the Greek Guardians knew about that thing. Qiyu stopped in his tracks. He knew that his strategy of loosening the reins was right. "Why, Brother Lu Yuan, have you thought it through?" Lu Yuan caught up with Qiyu in a few steps and said, "Yes, it's better to have one more friend than one more enemy. I think I can agree to cooperate with you on behalf of the Vatican. However, I hope that we can show our sincerity in this cooperation. At least before that thing appears, it's better that we don't plot against each other." Qiyu snorted disdainfully and said, "As long as you don't plot against us like you did today." "Speaking of sincerity, then, Brother Lu Yuan, shouldn't you first tell us the details of that thing? Only then can you show your sincerity in cooperation." Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Of course, but there's no hurry. How about this? We'll start our operation in 2 days. When we set off together, I'll naturally tell you everything. What do you think?" Qiyu knew that he could not force Lu Yuan too much, so he indifferently smiled and said, "All right, I'll tell you my number. Call me after you've decided on the place, but my patience is limited. If I don't receive your call in 2 days, we'll have to act on our own." As he said that, he gave his number to Lu Yuan. "Brother Qi, don't worry. Since we've said that we want to cooperate, we're very sincere. Then we'll meet again in 2 days." As he said that, Lu Yuan wanted to leave with his people. "Wait a minute, Lu Yuan. You're already a little late. I think you should take care of the aftermath here." Qiyu's eyes revealed a trace of naughtiness. Lu Yuan was stunned for a moment, but he did not dare to say anything. He could only nod his head helplessly. Watching Qiyu and the others leave, Lu Yuan revealed a pensive look. A holy knight beside him said, "Can this Easterner be trusted?" Lu Yuan coldly snorted and said, "No one can be completely trusted, but there is no eternal enemy. At least before we find that thing, we must cooperate with them. These Guardians of the East are very strong. You've seen the lineup of the Covenant of Darkness today. These Guardians of the East were able to retreat without any casualties. They even annihilated a small part of the Covenant of Darkness, especially the guy called Qiyu. He's very smart and very strong. I think he might have hidden part of his strength today. If it wasn't for his pressure that deterred Klinsman, I'm afraid today's ending would not be like this. Let's go. Leave 10 Knights of Light here to deal with the aftermath. The Cardinal Bishop should have arrived. This time, His Highness the Pope ordered us to get that thing. Qiyu, you've only seen our surface strength. Of course, I can only let you see this." Sitting in Ryue's Cadillac, Qiyu asked everyone to close their eyes. Only then did he release Ming Ming from the Kirin Pearl. He took out a set of his clothes and put them on her. Ming Ming's face looked very pale. Her body was a little weak, and her eyes were full of sadness. "Qiyu, you must save Qing'er. She actually became a vampire. With Qing'er's personality, I'm afraid she can't accept this fact." Qiyu nodded heavily and said, "I will definitely solve Qing'er's problem. But for now, Qing'er is not in danger for the time being." Modi frowned and said, "Qiyu, Why didn't we cooperate with those people from the Vatican to get rid of those people from the Covenant of Darkness? Chi smiled indifferently. Just as he was about to speak, Rue answered Modi's question for him. Chi did the right thing. In the West, the Covenant of Darkness has always been competing with the Vatican. Both sides restrict each other. What we saw today is already a considerable part of the Covenant of Darkness's strength. If we really killed these people today, not to mention that we might be injured, once the Covenant of Darkness suffers a serious blow, the Vatican will become even more powerful. If we have a conflict with them in the future, it will be very disadvantageous for us. Therefore, Chi did the right thing. The Covenant of Darkness has nothing to do with the Yanhuang Republic, and there is no hatred between them. The West is where their foundation lies. It was only because of the contagious blood BD that we took action. Since they handed over the method of detoxification, the hatred between us will naturally disappear. Rather than annihilating them, it is better to leave them alive to compete with the Vatican. Modi suddenly said, "So it is like this. Chiyu, you have thought so far." Chiyu smiled bitterly. "Eldest sister, I also have no other choice. The enemies are getting more and more. If we just fight, we only have a few people, and it is impossible to get rid of every side. At least it is impossible before our strength is fully developed. Therefore, what we need now is time. I think that no matter which side they are from, they do not have the same potential and speed of improvement as us. Therefore, we must use a mop and delay as much time as possible. After gradually increasing our strength, we will then let them see the power of the Eastern Guardians. The four big families are our foreshadowing. This is also the reason why I told the Shun family not to come before the operation." Ming Ming said, "Chiyu, I always feel that the four big families are not united with us. You must be more careful." Chiyu said, "I understand this. This is also one of the reasons why I am not willing to let them help us now. But the four big families will become our help sooner or later. The premise is that we have enough strength. At that time, we don't need to do anything, and they will naturally fight to become our vassals. Brother Su, after this matter is over, I will trouble you to go back to the Su family and find out the movements of your family." Su Dong smiled slightly and said, "You don't have to worry about my grandfather. He is a person. Once he has decided on something, it is difficult for him to change. This stubborn temper is not a day or two, so his relationship with the other three big families has been very ordinary. Previously at the Ghost Worry, your courage has already made my grandfather have a good impression. When you need help from the Su family, he will not refuse." Chiyu nodded and said, "That is good. Everyone should understand the reason why I want to cooperate with the Vatican. The first thing we need to know is what they are here for. Originally, we wanted to catch someone from the Dar Parliament today, but it seems that it is impossible to succeed. Therefore, we can only deceive the Vatican and hope that Li Yuan will tell us. Even if he finds an excuse to not tell us, we can continue to follow them. I don't believe that we can't find out the secret they are talking about." Ming Ming said, "Chiyu, I am really worried about Qinger. You don't know, she is very timid." Chiyu sighed softly and said, "In that situation, I can't do anything to Klinsman. From Li Yuan's expression, I can see that Klinsman is telling the truth. For the sake of Qinger, we can only let her follow Klinsman and find a chance to save her in the future. From how nervous Klinsman is towards Qinger, he will not hurt Qinger. But I really don't understand why he said that Qinger is his sister. Could it be that this fellow is a pervert?" Ryua shook her head and said, "These dark creatures more or less have some psychological problems. The next time we meet, we will think of a way to save your friend." Chi took a deep breath. When he got on the car, he had already retracted his original appearance. He realized that his strength had indeed increased by a lot. In today's battle, he had used up a lot of Thundercloud force and was injured. In the end, he had even used the aura of the ultimate Kirin arm to intimidate his opponent. However, other than feeling a little tired, he did not feel too much discomfort. The Thundercloud force was also quickly recovering. The water Thundercloud force in his body naturally activated Kirin's marrow cleansing and tendon changing technique to heal his injuries. Ever since the battle with Ryue and the two heavy injuries from the leper girl, Chiyu's recovery ability had greatly increased. The Kirin bead was a perfect match for his newly learned Kirin's ascending cloud technique. With the two combined, all the pores on his body could absorb the thundercloud force in the air to recover. Hilton Hotel. Yamu stood in front of the window and looked at the scenery outside, her eyes revealing a blurred sense of beauty. Not far from her, Soso leaned against the window and trimmed her nails, while Lin Yifan stood respectfully behind Yamu. "Miss, did you feel it?" Soso said as she trimmed her nails. Yamu nodded and said, "How could I not feel such a huge energy fluctuation? It seems that someone has already started to make a move." Soso said, "Then when are we leaving?" Yamu said, "Tomorrow." Originally, they had planned to leave today, but because they suddenly felt a strong energy fluctuation, Yamu decided to stay for a while, delaying their journey. "Yifan," Yamu called out softly. "Miss, what can I do for you?" Lin Yifan said respectfully. Yamu said, "After we leave, you continue to do what you have to do. We will be back in half a month, no matter the success or failure. We must go to Greece with Qiyu and Ji Mingming. While you are here, notify the people in China to prepare for the reception. Safety must be guaranteed, and at the same time, I hope to give them the best reception." Lin Yifan said, "Miss, I don't quite understand. Since Qiyu is the guardian of the East, why do you still want him to go to Greece? And to ensure his safety, I remember someone once said that the guardian of the East is our greatest enemy." Yamu smiled. Her beautiful eyes revealed the light of wisdom, and said, "No, you are wrong. The guardian of the East will never be our greatest enemy. We may have conflicts with them, but it is only because of the cultural differences between the East and the West. Yin Huang is a great nation. They have a historical accumulation that even our Greece can't compare to. As long as we don't provoke them, they will not take the initiative to invade us. This time, I invited Qiyu to go, in a sense, in the hope of reaching a certain alliance with them, and, at the same time, let them see our Greek culture. The moment I accepted the inheritance of the goddess Athena, Athena told me that in the near future, we will encounter great trouble. That is not only trouble for our Greece, but a global disaster. As for what the disaster is, I also don't know. And at that time, we will need to unite with all the guardians to protect our world. And the guardian of the East is an important part of our alliance. Until now, I still can't see through Qiyu, but I can feel that he has great potential. Perhaps it will not take too long. When his potential is fully displayed, even I may not be able to defeat him." Soso smiled and said, "Miss, don't think too much about it. I don't think that Qiyu is anything special. His eyes have been looking at you a lot. When others look at you, they all show admiration or respect, unlike his eyes, which are so naked." Yama looked at Soso and laughed. "This also proves that he is different. I think my judgment will not be wrong. I hope this matter will not cause any conflict with him." Lin Yifan said, "Miss, I will do as you say. To be honest, I don't like Qiyu, perhaps because he is my rival in love. Although I am very confident in myself, the way Ms. G looks at him makes me feel a little bitterly disappointed. I'm afraid I don't have a chance." Yama did not say anything, but only looked at Lin Yifan comfortingly. Soso giggled and said, "What are you afraid of? As long as you work hard, who knows, you might succeed. Sister will help you." Lin Yifan smiled. "Then I will thank elder sister Soso in advance." Soso lowered her head and continued to trim her nails, but neither Yamu nor Lin Yifan noticed the strange glint in her eyes. "Grandmaster, we will set off with the people from the Holy See in 2 days. I'm afraid it will be quite dangerous this time, so I don't want Vol and Lily to go. Let them stay in the villa and cultivate," Qiyu said. Upon returning to the Dragonfield courtyard, he immediately notified Jida to retrieve Klinsmann's primordial blood. Zagru smiled and shook his head. "No, without tempering, they will never be able to soar into the sky. Let them go as well. Only through constant tempering will they be able to improve their strength. This time, I will also go with you. I have a responsibility to protect the East." Qiyu was taken aback. "You want to go as well?" Zaglu was a little amused. "What? You don't welcome me? Don't worry, I won't hold you back. I might not be able to fight, but escaping is not a problem." Chiyu was taken aback. Grandmaster, I don't know what abilities you have. Can you tell us? Zagru smiled. I can't really say that I have any abilities, but I should be able to help you deal with some ordinary enemies. Simply put, Tianyin is a Buddhist, so I don't know how to kill. You can also say that I don't have any abilities related to killing. However, Tianyin also needs to protect himself and help those in need. Therefore, your abilities can be said to be thunder, fire, wind, and water. In addition to your Qilin characteristic, you have a total of 5 elemental abilities. However, I only have 1 elemental ability. You can understand it as the life elemental. The life attribute? Chiyu looked at Zagru in surprise. It was the first time he had heard of this attribute. Zaglu smiled faintly and said, Actually, it's very easy to understand. My ability is based on Buddhist energy, and it's mainly manifested in 2 aspects. One is defense, and the other is support. This second aspect is very similar to one of your abilities. It's just that the current you isn't able to display it before the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors are gathered. As Tianyin, my main mission is to find Kirin and help Kirin find the other Zodiac Guardian Warriors. Before you become completely strong, I will protect you and assist you in your cultivation. All along, everything you have done has been achieved by your own efforts. I haven't been able to help much. After all, I am a monk. I really don't want to get involved in too many matters of the mortal world. But this time is different. Before leaving Tibet, I understood that if I don't enter the mortal world to cultivate, my Buddhist heart will never be able to continue to grow. Therefore, this time, I came to experience the mortal world, but at the same time, I want to assist you and help you. Although Chiyu couldn't be sure how strong Zagru was, when he thought of his 10 lives of Buddha's power, Chiyu's heart unconsciously heated up. 10 lives of Buddha's power. How powerful was that? From the first time he saw Zagru, Chiyu was very interested in his true strength. Now that he finally had the chance to see it, he, who originally didn't have much confidence in this operation, couldn't help but feel confident. He smiled and said, Great Master, since that's the case, you don't have to return to Tibet in the future. With you here, we will have a lot more backbone. Zagru smiled and said, Aren't you taking the opportunity to threaten me? Don't worry, I've already thought it through before coming here. This time, I have temporarily set a year's time. But how long it will take will depend on you. Me? Chiyu looked at Zagru in surprise. Zagru nodded and said, That's right, it depends on your situation. The prerequisite for me to return to Tibet is that you can find all the Zodiac Guardian Warriors. At that time, you'll be able to display your full support to the Zodiac Guardian Warriors, and you won't need me anymore. Of course, if you encounter a problem that you can't solve in the future, I will still help you. Seeing the disappointment in Chiyu's eyes, Zagru smiled and said, Right now, you still don't understand what will happen when all the Zodiac Guardian Warriors appear, but in the near future, you will understand my intentions. Chiyu smiled bitterly and said, All right then. By the way, you have already taught the cultivation method to Snake and Monkey. Should we bring them with us on this operation? Zagru thought for a moment and said, If they don't have any objections, it's better to bring them with us. I have carefully examined their awakened abilities. Their energy is very strong, and they already have the ability to surpass 4 clouds. Moreover, Snake is the only one among all the Zodiac Guardian Warriors that has the ability to poison. With him around, it will be much easier to solve some special situations. Moreover, with the cultivation method, I believe that they will be able to understand the true meaning of their own abilities in a short period of time. In this operation, it will be very beneficial for them to improve their abilities. After all, only through continuous actual combat can they better improve their own abilities. Chiyu chuckled and said, I just don't know if they're willing or not. After all, they're the leaders of a gang, and there are probably many underworld gang matters. If they were to move with us this time, what will happen to the Sacred Flame sect? Zagru nodded and said, This will depend on them. If they really can't go, then there's nothing we can do. It's a good thing for us that they are the leaders of the Sacred Flame sect. In the future, we will have more power. Chiyu said, Master, then it's decided. Since there are still 2 days left, I have to do something. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Ruyue. who was at the side. When Chiyu and Zagru were talking, Ryue stayed at the side quietly and didn't interrupt. She let Chiyu and Zagru discuss. The current her was much gentler than before when she faced Chiyu. Moreover, her heart was also much more relaxed. Chiyu's abilities had become stronger, and at the same time, he had gradually shown his talent as a leader. This made her feel at ease to hand this heavy responsibility to Chiyu. Not only did this give her more time to cultivate, but she could also experience more things that she couldn't before. Ryue, do you want me to go to your room, or do you want to go to my room? Chiyu suddenly asked, giving Ryue a shock. Blushing, Ryue glanced at Zagru and said in a low voice, "What are you talking about?" Saying such ambiguous words in front of Zagru, even if the two of them had done intimate things, Ryue still couldn't take it. Moreover, Ming was also in the villa, cultivating and recovering her thundercloud force. Ryue was still worried about the relationship between Chiyu, herself, and Ming. Chiyu chuckled and said, "What are you thinking about?" Ryue, I really didn't realize that your thoughts are so ambiguous. Ryue didn't expect Chiyu to complain first. She rolled her eyes at him and said, "You said it first." Chiyu smiled and said, "What I meant was to ask you to protect me. I want to cultivate well these 2 days. Of course, it's either I go to your room or you go to my room. I'm afraid you don't think so." Ryue's pretty face became even redder, and she said angrily, "Bad guy." After that, she walked upstairs first. Today's battle had stimulated Chiyu a lot, which increased his desire for strength. There were still 2 days left. He had decided to use these 2 days to improve his strength as much as possible, and the method was naturally Kirin's ascending cloud skill. Chiyu really only gave himself the time to cultivate tonight. When cultivating Kirin's ascending cloud skill, he could fully unleash his potential, which would inevitably have a negative impact on his body. However, in order to improve his strength in a short period of time, Chiyu couldn't care less. Therefore, he decided to use this night to cultivate desperately regardless of the consequences, and then use the remaining 2 days to restore his body's state. In fact, he didn't know what effect this would have, but there would always be some chance if he fought hard. Even if he had overdrawn himself, 2 days of rest should be enough. Soon, Chiyu knew how wrong his idea was. Kirin's ascending cloud skill was far from as simple as he thought. When Chiyu began to cultivate and completely gave up the control of the absorption of thundercloud force, he knew how wrong he was. Since he had an intimate relationship with Ryue, Chiyu didn't have any scruples. He came to Ryue's room and directly sat on Ryue's soft bed with his legs crossed. Ryue nodded to him and said, "Don't worry, I will protect you while you cultivate." Chiyu smiled and said, "Don't you even need to go to the bathroom?" Ryue glared at him and said, "You guy, every word you say is lascivious." Chiyu looked at her ambiguously and said, "Don't you know that there is a saying? If a man is not bad, women won't love him. If a man is not a hooligan, women won't sleep with him." As soon as these words came out, Ryue couldn't help but recall the day in the grotto. Her beautiful face was like a ripe apple, and Chiyu almost couldn't control himself. "Well, hurry up and cultivate. After this is over, you have to give a good explanation to Ming." Listening to Ryue's gentle voice, Chiyu's heart was full of satisfaction. Sometimes he couldn't imagine that the gentle Ryue in front of him and the former Tyrannosaurus Rex were actually the same person.